look horribly familiar.
Aw, thank you. Everyone says that to me.
How sweet. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast. Welcoming in all those who are fans, new fans, and members of the jury. With me today, we have.
Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And say with me, everyone, if you look online for Cheap Seat Critics, you'll find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, TikTok. We have a Rumble and YouTube side for visual aid, even though, yes, audio podcast. And we have LetterBox as well if you're interested in the numbers and graphs we have over there.
No grinder though. No dating apps.
Not yet. Anyway, the channel isn't looking, but who knows what the future holds. Anyway, today we are covering Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. Before I get into little facts on it, let us begin with our history over the material. Let us start with writer.
All right. So, my history with this is actually an interesting one. Oh, I've heard a lot about it. I used to have this lunch group that I used to hang out with in high school that Sprinks would occasionally tag along to. They were like huge fans of this. They made constant references to Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. And it's one of those shows I just never got around to seeing up until the podcast. But needless to say, the tone was spoiled for me. The characters were spoiled for me. Who was in it? And they sung the music at me during those lunch outings. And so I've even heard the music before because they'd like to sing it and reference it. So my history, I guess, is an extensive one as it dates back to my high school years. But not really like much hands-on I've seen it before experience.
Okay, so you've seen pieces of the jigsaw puzzle all over the place, but now you finally got the full image.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Gotcha. All right, Crimson, your history.
All right. I heard the name of this through Sinister and Sprinks through the years. I knew who was in it, and I was shown a scene by Sprinks being the "What a Man's Got to Do" song, and that is pretty much all my exposure to it. Very minimal, mostly in passing stuff.
Alrighty. I'll go last here. I was introduced to this by a friend either the year it came out in 2008 or the year after, 2009. And I watched it at his house and became a fan of it. I'm like, that was really fun. And then kind of got into references of it and just like joked around along with it. And as the years went, I just like watched it again, introduced it to more people, just chatted about it, and now had the opportunity to have it on the pod. Yes, it's technically a mini-series of episodes, but in a collection, it has been called a film as well, so that is like technically not a movie, but all in together, it's a short film, so Joe's curious on that matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how music videos can technically qualify as shorts, right?
In our experience, yes.
But
Yes.
Was it a short with music, or was it music with a short?
Did we touch on that? Who knows? Okay, I have a couple facts, as I usually do, going down with a pick of mine, I guess. So its initial release date was July 15th, 2008. It has a runtime of 42 minutes. Its budget was $200,000, funded exclusively from Joss Whedon himself. Being that it is a miniseries in part for the internet, there is no box office of it, or a, I should have gotten the technical term, but no parental guidance line rating.
No parent rating, yeah.
Yes, and no TV rating either. Its genre is classified as drama, musical, comedy, superhero, and one area said sci-fi that I could find.
Okay, yeah, that checks out because of the invention stuff. That I guess.
Yeah, and it is directed by Joss Whedon, whose work we've tackled before with Firefly and Serenity, but he's also known for the Avengers film, the Justice League film, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show.
Oh, he's responsible for a lot of work that we reference, whether or not we've covered it.
True, I'm just bringing up those interesting. This isn't the first work of Joss Whedon that we've covered on the podcast.
Yeah.
And then I have a couple fun facts here. First off, from multiple sites on both Movie Web and Variety, Joss Whedon says that he had made more movie from Doctor Horrible than he did from writing and directing the first Avengers film. And I have a little blurb from the Movie website that says, "This has shocked some fans, especially considering The Avengers is the fourth highest grossing movie of all time and has grossed more than 600 million domestically, pulling in a staggering $1.5 billion worldwide." Joss Whedon didn't say how much he made from writing and directing the Marvel's Avengers, or how much Dr. Horrible has racked in since its first launch in 2008, but inquiring minds certainly want to know more.
Huh. That's interesting.
And I would imagine he was a millionaire by the time he was raising funds for this. So I don't know why he couldn't have pitched in more if he wanted more of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some artists like to challenge themselves. Like some artists do really great on low budgets, and then when they go to big budget movies, they don't. It's just kind of one of those things. It just might have been his way of challenging himself and, like, I guess, putting all his creative juices to use to make it work.
Yeah, I also didn't jot it down, and I'm unsure if it was the Movie Web or Variety, but I think Joss Whedon also said this was like his midlife crisis was to make an internet musical. So it didn't seem to be much. Possibly didn't have a lot of planning behind it. Like it wasn't an idea for years.
Yeah, he just kind of had an idea through it. I saw the behind the scenes stuff. It was an idea he just kind of threw out to his brother, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, we can do this." And then they just started. That's pretty much what it was. It was like a mini passion project. This was spontaneous.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention, in case this is your first episode of the pod you listen to, hi, welcome, welcome in. All these facts are taken from the internet, so take it with a grain of salt how true or false they could be. Fun fact number 6. Not number 6. I have 6. Fun fact number 2 here. The film was filmed in 6 days.
Makes sense. Pretty short.
Yeah.
Not too many film locations.
Yeah, that's doable. It sounds like it would have been like a fun hotel stay wherever they were.
Yeah, probably. Next one, Dr. Horrible's stun ray, which he later turns into a death ray, is the stun gun carried by Alliance troopers in Firefly held upside down.
Awesome.
Oh. I guess that makes sense why it looked so awkward when he was using it.
He has like a model of Serenity hanging in the background of his workshop, I think.
That I should have written down. That is a speculation of fans, and that's not true.
It looks like it for sure.
It looks like it. It's the angle of like pots hanging or something.
That's funny.
Yeah. Next one, Dr. Horrible Sing-Along blog garnered the first ever Emmy win for Joss Whedon, despite both his long and critically acclaimed career as a writer, director, and producer of many television shows, and the fact that it did not actually air on television.
It's the strange, spontaneous passion projects, man. This can get you.
Next,
he has
Penny's
better stuff
wardrobe.
than this.
Well, no, he hasn't. What are you talking about? This is clearly his apex.
Save it for the ratings, boys. Penny's wardrobe is entirely made up of clothes already owned by Felicia Day.
That makes sense.
Low budget. With the budget. Yeah.
And the last fact I have here, which is kind of tailored a little towards Crimson, the newscasters in Act 3, Marty Noxon and David Fury, don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, were writers on Joss Whedon's other shows Buffy the Vampire Slayer and also appear in Buffy's musical episode?
Oh, interesting. I don't remember. It's been a
Okay.
while since I've seen that.
Well, you haven't seen that episode, right?
I haven't.
No.
That makes sense.
No, that is Pat. You're in season 4 of Buffy, right?
Yes, I think so. Left off somewhere
You
in
got
season
past
4.
the mayor stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm certainly going to be referencing that Buffy episode throughout this podcast. So I'm not surprised by that.
Wonderful. Well, that's all the facts I have. With that, we'll go into the coverage of the film. Today, we're going to go with the 3-act structure, which is very on the nose if you've seen the film, of course. Well, I assume you've seen the film, listener. If not, spoilers ahead.
Yeah,
But-
and this one's free, so you have no excuse, I suppose.
So yeah, we're going Act 1, which is Act 1 all the way up to Act 2.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could be
Jeez.
it's
I'm
not
floored.
meant
I'm
to
lost.
be confusing for those who don't know.
How could you do this to me, Sprinks? I didn't prepare for this.
Okay, we start with the little title thing to the last word of balls.
Yeah, I'll start if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
Sure.
I think starting with, funny enough, Dr. Horrible doing a blog was brilliant. It's very, very, pulls us right into who the character is, and we get the entire first scene. He talks about like his heisting and that he gets emails for fans on his blog, and it does a lot of quick characterization and groundwork for Dr. Horrible, who is played by Neil Patrick Harris.
I just played by him. I posed the question to both of you. Was it too long? It delivered a lot of his character and motivations a little bit here. With the transmatter teleporter device that doesn't really come into play later in the film or anything.
Yeah.
But it shows how tech savvy he is and whatnot.
If I were to cut something, it would be I would cut down some of the transmatter story. Because there's a point where he puts it down out of frame, pulls it back, and says it smells like human. That was that was when it started becoming quote unquote too long for me. Otherwise, I thought it was fine.
Because it was 3 minutes and 52 seconds, almost 4 minutes, which is 10% of this movie or miniseries, however you want to call it. And 10% is a lot dedicated on one single shot, one stationary shot of an exposition dump. I don't know.
Crimson, that is a good mathematical tie-in there. However, the film's title is Dr. Horrible Cinema Blog, so blog is 20% of the title.
So it's underrepresented. Oh. I think if you connect every single blog scene in this, it would be more than 8 minutes, which would be 20% of the issue.
Plus, you have to remember there's times where he is still doing the blog, but we're seeing like his imagination or memory. So
do you think it's too long, Springs? Do you think that's fine?
I think it's fine.
That his piece on it.
I think it's fine. I think it's also good to start this way.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're. Sorry, you finish, Springs. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I think it would have felt longer if it was him like coming home, getting his outfit on, setting up the webcam, like a little, 20-second start kind of montage thing to then start kind of setting it up, but just starting immediately with it, I think is fine.
Yeah, I think
certainly more outside scenes and whatnot to it would have definitely made it feel longer.
Yeah, I can certainly see your angle to it, Crimson, but like I said, I don't really like even the part where I would cut. I don't think it's necessarily needed to cut. So, because it does, as you say, it adds to the tech savviness part of him. So,
I mean, it gives a lot of his character.
Yeah. And to be fair, you desperately need to front load all that because you only have 40 minutes in this case to tell your story.
Yeah, I just think it doesn't all have to be right here. Like the tech savvy part, if we were to cut that, could just be put later. I mean, we see how tech savvy is with his remote control device for the car, and he talks about the freeze ray during his song as well. I don't know if we need that here as the tech thing as well.
No, I see what you're saying. I'm just trying to think, like, if it wasn't all put here in the beginning and was cut to put another scene, like a different part later on, I don't know how well it would pace to go back to the apartment to talk about it.
Out of curiosity, Crimson, are you including the first song into the blog scene, or are you saying the first scene is cut when the song starts and we start seeing like the girl?
I have the 352 when it cuts out of the face of him talking to the camera. So not the laundromat song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the laundromat song is included in his blog, or at least it cuts back to him in that scene. That's why I was asking for your clarification of if you thought it was going on too long, in the sense of you're including the laundromat scene or not.
That's a good point. Well, that would make it 5.5 minutes.
like I said, it doesn't change how I perceive the scene, so that's why I brought it up to you.
No, I don't have an issue with the laundry stuff being part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an issue with it because he references it once, like in a normal way to talk to the audience, like matter of fact, like yeah, my freeze ray is coming along. I'm just missing a particular piece for it, and then he starts reading emails, and then eventually it comes up again during the song of how he wants to use the freeze ray, or like one of his like imaginative fantasies and using it. I don't really have an issue with that, like because I guess it technically repeats, but they're repeating with different pieces of information. One is setting up the heist later on, while the other one is setting up one of his fantasies with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I agree with your assessment that if I was to trim, it would be the transmatter thing.
Yeah.
Okay. The stuff it establishes is established through his freeze ray part in the song as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The transmatter thing. I think it's supposed to. What I think it's there for, like, which is why, like I said, I would trim it. I don't think it's needed to trim it, but one of the things that it does is it gives like more of a history to what he's doing as a villain. So it just shows that he does jobs. Like the bank heist where he stole the gold bars was something he recently had done. So it's kind of it shows you that he's like not just talking about being a villain, he's already a villain.
I suppose that's true.
So I like I said, I understand the sentiment. Like I don't see the I guess the too long. I'm sorry, I'm phrasing this wrong. I understand the sentiment. I don't know what else there could be done really. Because the blog is clearly a part of his character.
Yes, it is. And it can also point to how stupid his character is. Well, going forward.
We could talk about how serious this world is supposed to be, but
okay.
All right. I guess that was technically my point with a long branching offshoot. So somebody else go.
No, Crimson, go ahead.
Okay. Even though I brought up the prolonged scene, I will compliment the shots, which is probably one we all thought was good, which was the dryers with
all the doors open.
Doors. Yeah. I like that shot. I rewound it like 3 times on slow-mo to see if you could see the camera in the reflections. I couldn't, but you could see the people who open in them just standing there waiting for their cue in the reflection of the first one that Dr. Horrible opens. At
that's budget for you.
421. Actually,
That's
I
budget for
couldn't
you.
find a camera reflection.
Um,
Good on Joss for that.
yeah. Funny enough, it actually I saw it shot, and it reminded me of funny enough, it reminded me of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh,
Because the Everything Everywhere All at Once does a lot of the same like laundromat symbolism with the circle doors of the dryers and stuff like that while you're there. And honestly, that's just fresh on my mind usually. So, because that movie was left a little bit of an influence on me. So, so my mind went there with after seeing that. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I liked that. But yes, I agree. It was definitely one of my favorite shots of the show.
gotcha. I am also in agreement. I did really like the pull away shot. I'll touch on the. I like that the freeze ray. Dr. Horrible says it's to freeze time, and not to freeze like a person, and explains like it's not designed to like be individual.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
Overall.
One of the things he also likes to start to add on to that is that he calls it a freeze ray, and he has to dissuade the idea that it doesn't shoot ice.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And
I like that.
I like the following afterwards when he's singing the song with my freeze ray, and he goes up to Penny. She freezes, but in the background we can see a woman still moving, which in this instance shows that it is individual.
It's setting up too when he does use it later.
Yes, but he's saying that it's not designed that way.
It's not designed to do individual.
Yeah. When he says the freeze ray, to me, I took it as he wants to freeze time, like freeze everything.
Oh.
And that it's not to freeze, not like an actual ice gun, but not like freeze an individual person. Because for time. So then when it goes to Penny freezing herself with the movement of the woman in the background, I saw it as kind of like foreshadowing later on that it doesn't go exactly as planned, because even when he tests things, it's like in the moment of a test.
And I don't think it's supposed to be interpreted as freeze all of time, because at that point it wouldn't need to be a gun. It could just be like a box of some sort. He could also freeze himself in time if he freezes all of time. I think with what he was saying with it freezes time, it's in relation to the target he points the gun at.
Yeah, I never got that it was beyond the individual person. Because as you say, he just froze Penny and not the person in the background. Or are you saying that corrected what you originally thought, which was to freeze everybody, and then his imagination of just freezing Penny fixed it?
No, for me with Dr. Horrible's attention on Penny, singing about the freeze ray, that it would stop. Which I think in the lyrics, doesn't he say it would stop the world?
No, he was saying he would stop the world for them. I guess is what he was saying.
Okay, so then even to me, interpreting that would be freezing the world and not a person.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It was hyperbole.
Yeah, I assumed it was hyperbole.
I just saw the woman moving in the background during the song when he's singing about the freeze ray was a foreshadowing as to later when he tests it that it wouldn't be overall. It would be individual.
I suppose if you saw it as him freezing the world, sure. I didn't see it as foreshadowing that, because I didn't see it that way.
I'm kind of in the middle on this. Not to sound lame about it. I could definitely see it as I took it as kind of just the demonstration of how it could work. Like it would just, I don't know. Never mind. I'm losing train of my thought. But I thought like it was set up for what happened later. But you're right in that the rest of the world freezes around the two of them, right? In the song.
In the
No,
song,
everything
no.
moves except her.
Oh, so but he's still dancing with her.
Well, during the dance part, yes, no one else is in the laundromat.
Oh, like
But
so
when
the
she's pouring her dirty clothes into the laundry and he freezes her, there's a woman in the background still moving. And I think if it was the world, the woman in the background
yeah, the
would freeze
woman would
too,
have
or just not be there.
yeah. Okay.
So I see it as the woman's back there specifically to continue moving, to portray that it's individual. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in the shot, or she would be
Well,
frozen
yeah,
too.
there would be people in a laundromat, so
Well, true,
I
but
don't
when
think
they're
there's
dancing,
any
no one
reason
else
she
is
wouldn't be
around.
there.
Well, yeah, that's his imagination though, right? So like it's the transition from it being like a normal day to then it's obviously his imagination. See, talking about music sequences is
It's
always fun
fantasy
because
when it's yellow.
yeah, you have to talking about music sequences is always fun because you have to try to find when the reality of it ends and the song of the part fantasy fantastical part of it like begins. um yeah.
No, I'm in agreement with Crimson that the yellow is imaginary.
Yeah.
Of the dance.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think I got what you're saying now.
I don't have anything else for that.
Yeah. No. Nor do I.
Okay.
Oh, I'll go to the next little point. It's interesting the sound effect used when Dr. Horrible adjusts his goggles and how squeaky they are.
It's definitely
It's
comical.
the goggles or its gloves?
I think it's the goggles. It sounds like the Tin Man.
Oh, that's a good point. I actually wouldn't know if it's the goggles or the gloves because the goggles are shown to make the like noises as he moves around with them. So like when he's like reaching like during the blog, the gloves are what's making the noise because with how it's interacting with things.
Yeah, they're big heavy duty gloves. But to be fair, I can't think of the sound you're referring to. So
Okay, it sounds like the rusted Tin Man.
Mm-hmm. Like when they're pouring the oil on him, or just the clinking clanging.
Pouring oil. Like it's very squeaky, high pitched. But it's definitely a dubbed in sound effect.
well, yeah, I would imagine it would. Goggles don't make that much sound.
It caught my attention because then later on when he does move the goggle, or even at the end when he puts them on, there's nothing. Which I guess could go into like he's very low bar trying to get up high, so when he does change his outfit, it's all fixed.
Okay. The goggles, if you're saying do you make this metallic sound, they are made to look metal. The prop itself is absolutely not metal. It's just your standard rubber goggles that they put a couple lenses on the front of to make it look more evil sciencey.
Yeah. Well, Ryder, let's go with a point from you.
All right. I gotta. Funny enough, I want to jump. This is my last time. I'm gonna jump so all the way back to the beginning. I apologize. But what did you guys think of the starting with the evil laugh kind of trope? Like the fact that he had a speech coach help him. It's funny, but I'm curious what you guys actually think about it.
Springs first.
I like that it's already showing how, like, on the par of villains he is. Like he's attempting. He's still like working to get there.
Yeah, he's not a part of the League of Evil yet. You know, he got to earn his spot.
But he also doesn't want to be a henchman.
Yeah, which we find out later when he's talking to Wallowitz.
Well, he's got a PhD in horribleness, so he's above that.
Well,
Dr.
is
Horrible.
that true, or is that just the catchphrase?
We have nothing that says anything. There's no plaque in the background that has his diploma or anything. So.
Unfortunately, whenever I hear a joke like that, I always go to the Austin Powers one where it's like, Dr. Evil, I didn't spend 8 years going to Evil Medical School to be called Mr. Thank you very much. It's a classic joke, but you know.
Yeah. we kind of just have to take him for at his word for it. We don't have any proof that he actually has a PhD. Up to the individual if you believe him or not.
All right. Well, I guess did you give your thoughts on the joke or the Stark Crimson? What did you?
Intro. No, I didn't. I think it was a good start to establish his character. He's a goofy, evil guy. He's not a serious bad guy.
It also
by any metric.
Yeah, I also forgot to mention it. Also setting up his respect for the Horse of Evil, like how that Winnie is not didn't start out terrifying, you know.
Mm-hmm. Does he ever get to utilize his evil laugh in this, other than the beginning?
He does when he's
when he stomps on Hammer.
Yeah, when he stomps on Hammer in his fantasy. I think he also uses it at some point during the his final speech when he's shooting in the air.
Oh, maybe.
In either case, it's a for me it was a very great introduction to the character.
Yeah, it was good.
All right.
Something I had written down, which does get answered later, thankfully, because I didn't think it would, was how Captain Hammer foiled the heist. How do you know it was going to take place there? And then it's revealed later that he actually watches the blog.
Yep.
Yeah, and the LAPD.
Yeah. Which I laughed at. That was very funny.
Yeah, it was good. Glad it wasn't just poof, he's there. And then that tips to the intelligence of Dr. Horrible himself of why would you broadcast yourself like that as a bad guy?
Yeah, funny enough, I have a headcanon that his therapist said it's probably a good idea.
Could be.
That is a headcanon.
Yeah, like I said, there's obviously no therapist involved, but it seems like the kind of thing that a therapist would recommend, that he just needs to get out his feelings and communicate more. Mm-hmm. And also the therapist realizes he's a villain, obviously, so him broadcasting the evil stuff he's about to do is not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, I mean, he's not a bad guy that has a secret identity or anything. He shows his face. Mm-hmm. And if the LAPD are seeing his face here, it'd be probably pretty simple to get him.
Yeah.
Which is a problem I have later, which we'll cover.
Yeah, we'll dive into the world building issues, I think, because I think I know what you're talking about when he gets back to blog in Act 2, I think, is when that happens.
I think about the same thing.
Yeah. We'll talk about it then.
It's just weird because we have the established world building that there are villains and good guys. Even a civilian such as Penny knew who Bad Horse was. So it is a big thing. The world accepts these people. They are around. I don't know if it's like the Incredibles level, but there's a presence. And I would imagine they're actively getting hunted down by heroes and the police. So broadcasting yourself and divulging what you plan on doing is pretty beyond dumb to me. I would think dumber than what we see him in this, other than him actually blogging. Because he does set out and achieve his goals, just not in the ways he wants them.
Not in the way he intended. No.
Sprinks, what do you think about that? Is he too dumb broadcasting through a blog?
That's a good question. I think it's dumb, but I don't think it's brain dead. I think it's I think it's a use. I mean, it depends on what he says in the blog, because his first thing with the car and the van, they know where it is, but it's not like they're waiting for him, because he even still gets it. But that's the distraction of Penny. But if he says where he's going and what he's doing, which I think is in Act 2, it's automatically shown that's like, oh, that's dumb. But it doesn't show him learning from it of like, oh, I won't tell, my location of what I'm doing or where I'm scouting. I think he's more just focused on the rise of the ladder to be a part of the league. So that's why he's like responding to people and like stating all his things, which he also could think like the league's listening in.
Yeah, they definitely imply it might be him just trying to gain status. That's probably like you need to be a well-known, villain to obviously join the league. So maybe that's part of his outreach, I guess, being a blogger.
I mean, I get that in principle, but he divulges his plans so they get foiled.
Yeah.
Which can get into cartoon villain territory, but
oh yeah,
I don't think that's how they try to convey it.
I think we are somewhere in a gray area here between cartoonish villain and real life, because obviously I don't think this is a realistic world with how it's portrayed. I mean, people come out and sing letter songs for the horse.
We can touch on that too. But
yeah, I'm sure we will. It's like he doesn't say the exact place he's going to heist, but he's going to say it's for Wonder Flonian, and it's a rare enough thing that he needs to steal it from somebody, and he can't just procure it anywhere else. Which then the police or superheroes could narrow down to a specific place. So I don't know. If he utilized his blog as like a threat thing to build up fear of him as a villain, I think that would work more. But using it as
they don't really
just a step by step of how he is a bad guy is I think too dumb.
I'm not on that page, obviously. Like I think it's like I said, it's in the outreach program thing for me, which is where it falls into that. He just needs to get a following. He just happens to be communicating with fans more so than spreading fear, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I've been muddling over in my head, thinking. I think I'm in agreement with that.
With what Ryder said or what I said?
With what Ryder said.
Like mind you, if this was if this was a realistic world, I would be 100% be on your page, Crimson. Whereas this is too dumb, even for because he's a supposed genius. I would obviously I would label it as being too dumb. All right. I will jump to. I'm just gonna jump to the horse song. It's definitely a unique way of I guess getting through the letter's information, which I really liked.
Yeah, instead of Dr. Horrible narrating it.
Yeah, it's also very quick, which I appreciate. I think the only part of it that I would have cut, because I could just, and then again, this is just, I guess it's just a blend of the realism and the musical aspect. The only part of it that I think needed to be cut was when the guy was singing at his friend, singing at Wallowitz, like next to his ear. Not necessarily cut, but just reshot so it wasn't speaking in his ear. Because it makes sense why they would be singing to Dr. Horrible, because he's the one reading the letter.
In case to clear up confusion, Wallowitz, aka Moist.
Yeah. My problem with these guys, I didn't have an issue with them interacting with Moist.
Yeah.
It was with them being at the party at the end, because that actually grounds them as actual people.
Yeah. That's this is set up for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. They're not real. They're incorporeal. So now it feels like they're actual real messengers that do this, and they're just ignored. Like the horse just pays them to do this, but they're actually real.
They just teleport around, reading the messages.
Yeah.
Fascinating thoughts.
Yeah. What would be interesting? And here's the thing. What would be interesting is that it would be interesting if the horse pay them to spread fear about the horse, so they actually do go around and physically do this. But obviously, none of that's in the film. So it'd be cool if like they are part of horse's propaganda machine. So when people read
his blog.
messages, yeah. So when people read messages from the horse, everyone just imagines these three people because they're always the ones that are delivering the message on the horse's blog. Like they're his interpreters. Obviously, we don't get anything on that, but
Yeah, Spriggs, you're saying something interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating what you think of these three characters. I believe the party is the only physical presence they're in.
I agree. Yeah.
And when they're sinning over the fact of the letter or the following letter, that is simply just them writing the letter, and that's what Dr. Horrible's hearing in his head is like their voices of what they write. Like they're the secretaries or as Roger said, the
Interpreters,
messengers of Bad Horse.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with Springs. That's what they are, and pretty much. I because they get grounded as real people later on is kind of what throws it into question. And granted, it's a very very small amount of time, so we don't have time to like really dive into it. I really like what I don't really have an issue with what they sing or say, because it's again all very good characterization for a Bad Horse who only has one on-screen appearance.
Sure. Also, I believe these three cowboys are the Whedon brothers.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, I would have known.
Imagine you found that in your fact finding.
Yes, in a cast list, actually. I'll point out that I liked the joke of Moist going on a date with Bait and Switch, and he got bait and switched.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a simple joke, but it was very good.
Did like that. I recognized the alley where Dr. Horrible goes to do the heist is the Universal backstage lot.
Yeah, so did I. That's you can visit that in Universal Studios, right? Like I'm not dumb.
That's why I recognized it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like, I've been there.
Yeah, so did I. I'm like, I've seen this street before. Yeah, which is cool. I like that. You know, got to using a budget, working on a budget.
Well, I could tell you they were certainly working on a budget with the Wonder Florian briefcase.
Just the fact that it's a normal briefcase.
Well, I presume both of you noticed those were just stickers.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Did you want them embroidered on there?
Yeah, embroidered, engraved, painted.
Yeah, the stickers for me add to the joke. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
It adds to the cheese, as it turns out.
Looney Tune, yeah, sense.
Yeah, it adds to the cartoony part of the world. Speaking more broadly, if this was the pilot to like a show, I would absolutely watch the rest of the show.
So would I. They've kind of, I think, it's continuation, but they have a comic book line.
Interesting. Well, yeah, a lot of Whedon's projects that are cut short, and unfortunately, there are too many to count. They are continued in comic book lines because that's what happened to Firefly after it got canceled, and
Buffy.
And
yeah,
Buffy.
Had 7 seasons on TV, and then went to 12 on the comics.
Yeah, it's just be how it do. One thing that I really quick characterization for Penny. She's handing out the homeless flyers. It's a very it's an archetype tool, but it's very effective. It pulls us into the fact that she's a good person. And I'm gonna skip ahead of a lot of the high stuff because I want to highlight one of the funny little things that I really appreciate is the classic quick change that superheroes and supervillains do in cartoons.
Yeah, when he ducks behind the
And then he comes out in full costume.
self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like All American Boy. Sky
Not
High
familiar.
fans out there.
Oh, now I'm familiar.
Sidekick to the commander.
Side kick.
Bingo.
Bruce Campbell.
We don't get
Yeah,
enough.
the talk Billy and Penny have in the alleyway, though, was interesting. I don't think anything was wrong with it, because he's conflicted. Does he talk to the girl he likes? Does he go through with his dream of being part of the league, completing the heist? I do think it was not very well done, but it did its purpose, I think.
I have a question for that. Do you think this is their first conversation?
It's
not just in the movie, but of the two characters.
No, yeah, it's implied that they've never spoken to each other before. They just kind of passed each other by.
She comments how it's crazy how we've never really talked before this when they're in the laundromat.
The only time that we were shown that they talked beforehand is when he accidentally comments on her hair.
Yeah, and that could have been a dream too.
That could have been a dream too, but it plays off like that's real. But to be fair, that's not really a full on conversation. So they didn't technically talk; they just exchanged like a quick sentence, and then here they have their first full length conversation together.
Okay,
well, he
also
told Moist he's a couple weeks away from talking to Penny or something. Right?
He's working up the courage.
Yeah,
I
think there's enough to imply they haven't really talked. This is their first interaction.
Yeah, they definitely what's it called? I think yeah, I think they do a good job in the scene. Nothing's wrong with the writing. You can definitely feel the awkward tension and confliction, which is obviously the point of the writing. I think they might have dragged it out too long. I might have a pacing issue with the scene. This would be my pointing first at a pacing issue, because he's like too distracted with his phone. When we saw how quickly he like took over what's going on, so we have no idea what he's doing. Like he's still typing away on it. But we are shown at the like beginning of the scene when the device connects he's already connected to it. So at that point, I'm completely lost as to what he's doing on his phone, and I think that drags out the pacing of the scene a little too much, because he obviously keeps drifting away to look at the car that he's more interested in stealing the heist from, and obviously the point of it's to add confliction. But the problem is that just seems to go on too long, because either he's got it or he doesn't, and we're shown he clearly has got it at the start of the scene. So I think it would have worked better if they showed the proper connection like halfway through the conversation on his phone, so we could then assume that all the texting or whatever he's doing on his phone and typing was related to that, rather than what's going on afterwards when we're already showing that he's connected and he's still typing away on the phone.
When you say he's got it, you just mean connected to the car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it shows that he's connected, and it shows the controls on his phone that he uses later. Like there's no change from what he's using here and what he's using later. But the entire scene, he's still just texting away on his phone, like typing away. So like if it showed that he was hacking into something, that would have maybe helped, but we don't really get that. So I
agree
think
with that.
Yeah, I think that's what drags down the pacing a little bit in this scene.
Yeah, I'm in agreement that there's no need for him to continually do more things on his phone once it's connected, but he still needs to constantly look over his shoulder while talking to Penny, looking for the opportunity, because we don't know, but I think he needs to have the Wonderflonium in the vehicle without a driver.
Yeah.
Is that window of opportunity.
Yeah, I'm in agreement that like he would keep looking at the car. I just think the texting part itself is what drags the scene's pacing out.
Yeah. Do you think it's more awkward that they're lined up at that angle? Like
no,
he's not,
I'm not. Well,
because then
let me
he would have
finish it.
seen her coming, right?
Um,
Like if she was walking from the van towards him, he would see her coming at him rather than him looking at the van and she comes up behind him.
I'm not too worried about
Wait.
that. That's just where she was placed looking for homeless people, which was down that street. Like you could see the brick and stuff like that, so it's clearly like it's implied it's the same location or a close location. So I don't know if that's convenience. It's just how the world was laid out.
Okay. What I'm getting at with this is that it would have been, I don't think it would have been as awkward of a scene if he could look at both Penny, his phone, and the van just by looking.
Oh,
in
like he
one
was
area.
looking, like he was like if the van was behind her. Yeah.
Yes.
Um.
Yeah, if they were just swapped.
hmm.
I don't think it would have come off as awkward or off-putting to Penny because he physically has to turn his whole head to look at the van, which is away from her.
Yeah. I don't know if that would fix my pacing issue with the scene, but it might. It would just be less for him to do.
Yeah, I think that would help with what you're saying on the pacing side for giving a little more attention to Penny while also still seeing the van behind her. However, I prefer what we have because it gives his character less opportunity to be like she's here, but because of the focus, it really shows the pull of Dr. Horrible looking back at the van and away from her,
Yeah,
which is her feeling he's not a part of the conversation.
Yeah,
which I think also goes into what I sense, which is funny, but I think Penny actually tested him when she says the line, get people off the streets so they can buy rocket packs, go to the moon, and become florists. I don't know how sincere that was of an answer for her to say to him. One more was a test of his attention to see if he picks up what she's saying.
Yeah, that was a test.
I don't know how you could have interpreted it to not be a test.
Yeah, that was definitely a test
not what
because
she's doing.
that was definitely a test because she could tell at that point he wasn't paying full attention to her because he was clearly looking the other way. So yeah,
I'm thinking. I mean, I'm glad we're all in agreement, I guess, with that it is a test. But I think in this world of heroes and everything, it's not impossible to think like, oh yeah, heroes go to the moon every week.
You mean like that's part of
rocket
the? You mean that
like
that might be
convenience
part of the
stores.
world building itself? Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I just want to see more of this world because it could be true, and that would give completely different context to the line.
And it's not a test at all.
Yeah, then it wouldn't be a test at all. But the problem is without that,
And her face also says it's a test.
Yeah, I'm saying without.
Not just a line.
Yeah, I'm saying, but without that, I assume it's a test. If all that was here, I would agree it would be more of a gray area. But without it, it's not a gray area. It's cool to think about, though. It makes me want to see more of the world.
Yeah, I think Captain Hammer would be okay with sending the homeless to the moon. I think he'd be for that.
He'd probably just sign whatever.
Yeah, he and Elon Musk would get along. But yeah, I think it's a. So yeah, when back to the pacing issue, I think if he were if he was facing one way, and obviously I don't think that would necessarily fix the pacing, but I can see what you mean. Like it takes away the physicality of the confliction that he's feeling. There wouldn't be the physical need to turn around, which you say you like.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna agree with that. I think I prefer it the way it is. I like it adds a bit of awkward comedy with him having to physically turn his head away as a clear sign that he's not 100% focused on her. Yeah, I guess I don't really have much to add to that. Other than, sorry.
Yeah, the part another part for the scene for me, what was, we briefly touched on it for a second there, was just the convenience of her alleyway here where the homeless are just happens to be right where his rare component or element is that he requires.
Well, Crimson, the universal lot's only so big.
I was gonna make the same jokes for.
Look at Blazing
It's half a town.
I would say it was convenient if the filming location didn't look so similar. Obviously, it's the Universal film lot, but I don't know, the background kind of foreshadowed that this would kind of the same location before they met up. Um, but yeah, I'll definitely label it as convenient because it would be, especially if this was a big.
Yeah, it's in L.A.
Yeah, it's L.A. So
Just gross.
yeah, it's L.A. I'm happy to label it as convenient. I'm just saying I didn't notice. I guess I knew it was convenient. I did write it down on my notes. I just didn't label it as a major problem because I'm like, oh, this could be a small town, but I keep forgetting it's L.A. because he said LADPD, which does make it a little bit more of a problem.
Also, for how, I mean, the lot's been used for multiple movies, but it kept tickling my head. I'm like, where have I seen where Penny is currently right now? Like handing out flyers. I'm like, I know this location. I believe, and I feel like I'm the higher up when it comes to this out of the three of us here, but still the two of you would help. I believe that's the same alleyway that Batman 1989's parents died in.
It's very
Oh,
possible. Let me.
Where Vicky Vale chases him down when he like puts a rose down
Alright.
in the middle of an alley.
I'm actually gonna look it up really quickly. So hold on.
Okay, I
Warner
think
Brothers
it's
is
the
involved
same.
in DC
Yes.
stuff, so
It was just I'm like, I know I've seen this is so
You
familiar.
said it was 1989.
Yes, the Tim Burton
Okay.
1989 when Bruce Wayne puts a rose down. I think in Crime Alley. But going back to the film, it really helps with this cartoonish-ish world that it helps with this, and I don't see it as a nitpick or anything, but when Captain Hammer's so full of himself that he looks into the camera of like, yeah, that's me, while singing, I think fits him so well.
Oh yeah,
and
I
he looks
agree.
at the camera a couple times in this.
Yeah.
I am gonna drop a picture in the chat. This is the best one I could find right off the bat for Crime Alley.
And if anyone's curious about this image, maybe it'll be on the Instagram post.
Yeah, I'll include it with the Instagram post.
Ryder, with this image,
Not enough.
it's the right scene.
Yeah, that's the only one I could find.
Yes.
Let's see. Here's another one. I think.
It's okay. Ryder, we'll save this for the recap.
We'll save for the recap. Yeah.
For the curiosity on the matter.
All right.
Okay. But yes, I think Captain Hammer looking at the camera. I don't know how much the character does it. I don't know. It kind of gives me the Booster Gold feel.
Oh yeah, I
Of,
definitely
like,
got
I'm
Booster Gold
popular.
vibes.
Booster Crimson, how familiar are you with Booster Gold of DC?
Not at all.
Okay.
I know the name.
Yeah.
That is it.
Funny enough,
James Gunn wants to make a movie.
Yeah. Funny enough, I know Joss Whedon was involved with the early 2000s Justice League animated show, and Booster Gold is in that, and so is Nathan Fillion. He voices like a cowboy, I think.
Well, I think Nathan Fillion picks up the phone anytime it says
Yeah.
Joss Whedon on the caller ID.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What was he in Avengers? Darn it.
Yeah, truly, we missed out. I would have loved to see Nathan Fillion as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Do you know how much better it would be if he was the guy playing Galaga? It would elevate that movie from like a 9.5 to a 10.
Well, I'm like, what if he was the guy that Cap saved instead of it being Ashley Johnson? It's like, Captain America saved my life.
All first scenes got cut though, except for one.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for him. But yeah, Firefly. He's at Buffy. It's all.
Anyway, Booster Gold's very. I believe his thing is he's from the future, sent to the past to look cooler, because he's a lame dude in the future,
Yeah.
or from his timeline.
Pretty much the gist, yes.
Yeah. So just Captain Hammer being like, "Oh yeah, I'm the cool guy," and looking into cameras, which I guess could play into like. It's a fourth wall break, but it's also could be a character thing. of like when a camera's around, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna look at it.
Yeah, he's a smile for the camera. He's a showboat.
Yeah.
Well, he's not a hero to help people. He's a hero to feed his ego.
Yeah, he's a hero to get the thanks because that feeds his ego.
Which goes into the gray area of like, is Dr. Horrible really a villain? Is Captain Hammer really a hero?
Well, Horrible's certainly a villain. Hammer, you could debate his level of heroism.
You can argue that Dr. Horrible is a villain with morals. Like killing is off-putting to him, as we find out in Act 2.
Kids.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's very against children.
He doesn't want to kill kids, and he's also against killing in general. Even when he's talking with the wet or whatever.
He's not against killing because of killing. He's against it because it's not his style.
Yeah. Well, we don't.
And not just killing kids, just being around kids. Like he's not. I'm going to fight you in a park. There's kids around.
Yeah, he is moral in the sense of how he goes about being a villain, but
because I was going to touch on a little bit of possible color theory.
Oh,
should I just leave now?
Dr. Horrible wears all white with white gloves.
I'll tie you down.
Hammers,
okay.
black with black gloves. So it's the light versus the dark.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, that's the reason is obvious is that Dr. Horrible is our protagonist. Even if
he's a doctor, he's got a lab coat on.
No, he doesn't. That's
for a reason.
Coat. But yeah, no, but the reason's obvious is that Dr. Horrible is our protagonist, and obviously Captain Hammer is the antagonist in this story. So yeah, the color theory is spot on for that.
Well, when I say lab coat, it's like a Dr. Frankenstein lab coat.
It is. It matches that, which is a surgical jacket.
Yeah, I don't know what jacket it is. I just know it's not called a lab coat. If it is a lab coat, I'd be surprised, actually. Like, genuinely. I've been wrong today already.
I don't know the history of lab coats.
Nor do I. Because you're right. It's usually like, it has that, like, mad scientist vibe appearance. And one thing I really like as well, kind of just demonstrating more on how Captain Hammer is in Dr. Horrible's life, always thwarting him. He's in the middle of singing his song, and the song is interrupted by Captain Hammer.
Yeah, he takes it over.
Yeah.
And he talks over him when he tries to sing back as well.
Steals the show, more or less. As Nathan Fillion should always do.
Now, that's a good kind of thing to bring up. We've seen instance before here on the pod of a musical fight. How does this compare to the one we've seen before in Multiverse of Madness?
It's very different.
Oh, well, this is actually a musical fight, whereas they were just using notes at each other in Doctor Who Multiverse of Madness. They don't really have a lot of back and forth in lyrical fight. Like, there's not an actual lyrical battle going on.
That's true. It's not a one-up thing.
The aspect of this film or miniseries is are they actually singing in this in parts of it or not?
That's a big question.
That's probably my biggest question in this is what parts are we supposed to interpret as them actually singing, if at all?
Yeah, I mean the transition for again, it's I don't know, to be honest. I treat it as a musical in the sense that like the music is there in place of, I guess, what would be dialogue in this case.
Dialogue, inner thoughts.
Yeah.
That's how I lean towards it in the world of what's going on.
Unless there's explicit reason to believe otherwise, I tend to believe that it's in place of what's going on in real world stuff. So like the real world stuff is happening, but the music has just replaced it.
Yeah.
Or there's a version of that real world stuff that's happening that the music's replaced.
And it's not a music maestro situation. It's not like they have to sing in the world going on. It's just the portrayal of the film or to audience musical aspect. Like when the first song, Freeze Ray, I don't think Dr. Horrible's singing at all. He's just explaining what the freeze ray does to his blog. But to us watching it, it's all in song.
You don't like our answers, I can tell.
When your answers are fine, it's more me towards musicals and the reason behind choosing musicals when
As
making
an
a
art
film.
form.
Why did this story need to be a musical? The story isn't connected to music other than that they are singing. If we're seeing Dr. Horrible's view of the world through song, then I would have liked to know that he likes music in the background or something, and we're just seeing the movie through his perception of it. I've seen lots of like TV show music specials and stuff. One being Buffy, where they explain Sanctuary, Fringe has one, and there's always a reason why they chose to go musical. I don't know why this is a musical.
Yeah, The Flash also would be a musical episode that I remember, and that, funny enough, watching that episode with my uncle is what told me is when he told me I need to get into Buffy, because it was funny enough. But yeah, there's usually
I don't know why this is a musical other than Joss Whedon wanted to make a musical web series, but in terms of the actual product, I don't see a reason why it is.
Yeah. Well, see,
I just see it for the fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, the musicals can just be done for fun of it, but to kind of add onto what you're saying, Crimson, those are unique situations when those musicals come up. Usually in TV, when they have a musical special as a part of the show, there's usually in-world reasons given for the fact that they need to sing or be a musical. When you're doing musical as an art form separate of that, you don't necessarily need to have a reason to do that, because they don't need to justify it, because it's just the choice that they've made. So all the examples that you're giving, I think those are all. Again, I haven't seen the Fringe or Buffy one, but from my limited experience with those, there's always an in-world reason as to why those episodes are musicals.
Well, the Fringe one, that one was an outside world one. The Fox network was having a bunch of their shows do musical episodes. The Buffy one, Joss just wanted to do a musical episode, and he wrote all the songs in one night. There's a lot of story behind that episode.
Yeah, I have heard some of the story behind that one.
Yeah, Sanctuary. That one was they just wanted to do a musical episode. So, and then they explain it within the show itself and whatnot. And then you can go to movies like Sweetie Todd, right? Yeah. The reason why that's musical is because it's based off of a play. So they just transferred it into a film format. I think there'd be a lot of people complaining if they took a musical and then didn't make it a musical in a movie format.
Did we have this discussion over the musical that we've already covered on the podcast? I forget the name of it. With Hugh Jackman?
With Greatest Showman?
Yeah.
Greatest Showman?
Did we have this discussion?
We talked about I think I brought up the different ways they utilized the music in it. Some were in universe, some were not, like when they were swinging.
Yeah. And we talked about how that wasn't consistent, I think.
Well, we just talked about how they use different forms. I don't think we decided if it was negative or not, but
yeah. Okay. I think I brought up the multiple different versions of a musical. Like there's the ones where there's music around that's in it, but it's not to a character. For example, I mean, a good one is Tarzan. Tarzan's got a lot of music, not a single character sings in it.
Yeah.
But some could still see it as a musical. A lot of people are like Disney's musicals a lot. Then you have the ones where the characters actually sing, which is a song, but it's not about, it's like a moment of a scene. It's not really what's going on. Dr. Horrible, I see it as like inner thoughts, inner feelings of going around. And then you have the ones like Les Mis or Into the Woods, and I guess Sweeney Todd's also that, where it's actual like dialogue usage and conversation pieces is just in song.
Yeah.
Which is mostly all taken off of like Broadway performances or plays.
Yeah. Which comes down to me as an intent of creating a musical. a lot of those were based off stage performances, which have a lot of music in them. In those particular examples, Little Shop of Horrors is another one. So when you have something that's purely original that is just a musical like this, no source material, comes down to what's the intent of making this particular piece a musical.
Is the want on not enough as intent?
And
I think Crimson's confusion right now is what being a musical, what does it strengthen? Or what does it weaken by having it as a musical?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Why did this need to be a musical? Does it
like if there was no music present, would the film be better or worse?
Did the story of this need a musical to be made? Does it better it? And I don't think it does.
That's a very good question. Funny enough, I think objectively, not needed at all. You can take all the music out and it wouldn't be as good. Subjectively, I think it makes the world a little more fun, a little more zany to it, of the characters going into breaking out in song. But I think the same could be achieved without the musical. Actually, no, because, well, no, it would be longer. I'd say that. They can do it without the music, but it would be longer to get more of the yeah, what the lyrics are saying of these characters would be used in other methods.
Yeah, if this was not a musical, it'd have to be. It's funny enough, I think it would have to be an hour and a half movie if the music wasn't here. Just to kind of keep a, because the music helps keep the tone very light for what is supposed to be a very dark story. Because, you know, the hero not being a good person is actually very dark, and the villain becoming more evil slowly as the story goes on is also very dark. So I think tonally the music's there to keep it light. But that being said, as an objective need for the music, I'm probably in agreement it doesn't need it, but it's here. I don't know if it's... I
don't think the music tones down it. It comes down to their portrayal. If you cut the music out and you keep it with new dialogue or just
but that's reworking
scenes with their faces.
Yeah, but I mean that'd be reworking the whole story though to fit that tone. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying with what we have right now, it would just be a much darker story.
I guess that's an interesting question in its own. Does a musical quicken the pace of a story?
Depends on the musical.
Yeah.
I don't know. I sat through like 3.5 hours of Les Miserables, so
I think that'd have to be a case by case basis.
Yeah, that would have to be a case by case basis. Yeah. For this one, I don't know. I don't know. I guess objectively you don't need the music, but I don't mind that it's using the music. So
Crimson, it's fun.
It doesn't really affect.
It's for fun.
It doesn't affect my objective score at all, whether it's a musical or not in this case.
Yeah, I know we have this whole thing that I don't like musicals and stuff, but the examples I brought with Fringe, Sanctuary, and Buffy, I actually do like those. I have the Buffy musical soundtrack signed by Joss Whedon and Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Good for you.
Yeah,
bragging rights.
Throwing it out there, I have that, and seeing another piece that he's done as musical, and you can definitely see some parallels with his writing style of music. I imagine he wrote the music in this as well.
He definitely had a hand in it. He wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because he did that in Buffy, and there's certainly some songs where you're like, there might be some nods. It's quite similar to some. There's even a laundromat song in the Buffy episode.
Joss and his brother Jed Whedon wrote most of the songs, as well as Marisa Pacciarino. I don't know how to pronounce that fully.
I guess I got a follow-up question for you, Crimson. Then,
yeah.
So you like those musicals as musicals? What separates this from those? If you can break it down.
Because I kind of touched on it, where the musicals were necessities with the story they provided in the examples.
Yeah.
So the Fringe example, it's a musical because Walter is telling a kid a story, and it's a musical because it's a kid's story.
Yeah.
In Sanctuary, there's this monster that they have to deal with that can only communicate through song. So everyone around has to sing for the creature to understand them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Buffy, I don't want to spoil that one. But
Thank you, I appreciate
there's
it.
reasons
Yeah,
why
they're
Yeah, so
musical.
in-world
big
reasons.
fans of Sanctuary and Fringe out there.
Yeah.
Just got spoiled.
Oh, that doesn't spoil too much about them. That's right at the beginning of the episodes. The Buffy one is actually a reveal. But I don't see any reason here other than Joss is like, I want a musical thing. The others, they actually put reason into them other than he just wants to do it.
They're in-world reasons, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't know if this is Dr. Horrible's perception of the world. I think that would make it better. But as it is now, this looks like it's just for the audience. We get a musical movie. If this is all through his eyes, that would make... There would put reason behind it being musical.
That really just goes into your preference on what musicals you like.
Yeah, that's unfortunately I label that under subjective. So, because I get what you're saying. It would be cool. I agree. It would be cooler that if it was through Dr. Horrible's eyes and that's how he saw the world in this twisted musical way. Funny enough, as I said that, I was reminded of Joaquin Phoenix Joker dancing at the end of the movie on top of like the crashed cop car. Like, because obviously he sees the world in a very twisted way. I don't see how that's objective, unfortunately. Because it could be just for the audience. It's not we're not given an in-world reason for the song, but that's fine. We don't necessarily need it.
Yeah, it just
sit on and see if there's other examples I can do outside of musicals.
Goes into interpretation.
Things.
I welcome it. Like I said, I don't know if you're going to move me on it being an objective problem, but I welcome my mind being changed. That's part of the fun of the podcast.
I don't see it as objective in any case on that regard, being that this is a full done project. As for the examples you've given, have prior and following examples of usage of what's going on. It's not entirely musical. It's just like a one bit.
Yeah. If this turned into a show and this was the only musical episode, I would think it's weird. Unless they recontextualize it. It's from Dr. Horrible's perspective. Because the other shows have groundwork to lay. Anyway.
Is there any movie example anyone could think of where it's a normal movie but there's one musical number in the film?
Belle is a good example. It's not really a musical, but there are musical numbers and story being done during the musical songs.
Well, there's numbers. Is there one that just has one?
Oh, well.
Like an example for Crimson Sane where all these episodes are totally fine in a show with one musical episode. Is there a movie that kind of fits that? Where it's all normal until one like musical part in it?
I don't know if I can think of off the top of my head. The reason my mind jumped to Belle is because that would be the closest example I can think of one.
Well, I think this doesn't really go with what Shrinks is just saying, but I think Ray Showman and Belle are good examples of what my issue is with this. Is if you took the musicals out of those, it would completely change everything. The music gives a reason to it being a musical.
And you think taking the music out of Dr. Horrible's Seen Along blog wouldn't change everything?
Nothing drastically. No. Because even without song, we know his thoughts on Penny. Hammer and Penny would still get together. We know they have a relationship.
We lose all the Iron Horse stuff.
The scenes.
Yeah, we also lose all the Iron Horse stuff, so we need to rewrite that. Or the Iron Horse.
Yeah, he would just narrate it. I mean, there would be some lost stuff, but it doesn't need it. But that wasn't the thing I was going to sit on for more comparisons. But Spranks, to answer yours, nothing comes to mind immediately. But there's probably some examples out there for that.
Yeah, I'm probably there's probably something where like a grandpa sings a little song or something, or like a lullaby scene.
Actually,
in something.
Hold on, I think I might be able to. Actually, I think it could just justify Belle a little bit more for as a propped up example here. a lot of the songs she sings in that movie are performances, except for one, which is actually a musical number because character changes are happening over the course of the song, and that's the one where she's dancing with the Beast in that film.
Yeah, at his castle.
Yeah. That's the only quote unquote musical part where character work is being done within the song, and it's also still doubles as a performance. Because all her other music in that film is just her giving a performance, and it's not necessarily a quote unquote musical.
Yeah, and then Oh Brother, is it a musical? What? I don't think so, but we had that whole debate as well. With are the sirens actually singing?
Yeah, Oh Brother is another good example for that. They have one song they sing twice, but there's other music in the film.
Oh, the three air quote musicals we have do kind of go with they have a purpose being musicals behind it. But we're talking a lot on this one topic, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's an in-depth
we're getting
topic.
anything new out of it.
Yeah, it's an in-depth topic.
Well, it sounds like it changes the whole film for you on your objective, Crimson. Seems like a pretty big thing.
But yeah, whether or not it needed to be a musical in the first place, we'll find out at the end if it does affect.
I guess I'll restate my stance on it. I don't see that as an objective problem. I see it as a subjective one. But again, I'm stand to be convinced. I guess in recap or future conversations going forward about it. Before I guess turn this over to you, Springs. I have another question for Crimson that I just thought of.
Go ahead.
My short that I chose.
Yes.
So obviously it tells a story without the music.
Cyberpunk one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the music one, Crimson, the Springs. It tells a short without is the music necessary for the story then in that, or
we had a whole debate on how relevant the music was. Springs thought it was 100% relevant to what was happening. You, Sinister, and I saw it as not as relevant.
Yeah. So I'm bringing that up here because I think it doubles into this conversation a little bit of the necessity of the music to what's happening on screen.
And that was a little bit different because that one is a music video.
Yeah.
But
I admit fully question that I admit obviously my question is very constrained in the fact that it is a music video, but they can function independently.
You can still get the story of that short without the song. There's enough visual storytelling for that, if that's to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're asking. If your music video you chose, if it was put on mute, you can still get the story.
Pretty much.
For Dr. Horrible, if you put it on mute, could you still get the story?
A little bit. I'm kind of angling in that way, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. What would be an exclusion?
The horse, like I said, stuff is getting completely lost. But assuming that we're rewriting that,
I don't know if that would get lost.
I'm going with Sprinks' mute thing right now. I'm running through the movie in my head. Could you understand the entire story muted? Yeah, the horse thing would probably be the hardest, but everything else I think would be properly conveyed to be understandable. Even the laundry scene, you could see, he wants her, and all that.
We had the visual gag of
him being jealous of Hammer, him wanting to kill Hammer later.
They do a lot of with their expressions. I think that could be conveyed with a lot of it could be conveyed without the music, without the sound of it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. That's all I had on the topic. Just getting more of your thoughts out there, Crimson.
Interesting. Well, we're coming down to pretty much the end of Act 1 here. One other thing I have in my notes is at timestamp 13:22, when Dr. Horrible's on the side of the van, it's very quick. I think it's 1 second. It seems to be overexposed with exposure.
Yes, I know what you're talking about, where it's too bright.
Yeah, I think I know what you're referencing.
I'm not fully aware of the reason. I don't know if it's actually on the end of a camera, situation, like the camera was set to that level and it was just like what they had with the shot of the day, and it's like, oh, okay, we'll just run with that. Or if it was an editing thing afterwards, it could have been the opposite, like the camera was set too dark and they're like, oh, we have to over edit it, but the only way they could do it was at the level we see.
It comes down to a lot of speculation. We don't really know why, because it is a glaring, like, one little snippet that's off. We don't really know why it's off, but it's apparent.
Yeah, it's very.
It also
don't know how much
there.
choice was behind it.
Yeah, we also don't know how long it was, and that could be the reason for it being 1 second. So it's like to explain how Dr. Horrible even got in the van, rather than just cutting to him in the van looking out the front window.
Possible.
It's certainly possible.
It's just quickly there to give context.
So do I have anything about the final this final scene?
Final scene or anything else in the act?
Yeah, I found it funny, just like him hitting Dr. Horrible's head against the fucking front of the car, like just more like he was doing it so easily, like an afterthought. I thought that was pretty funny. It just shows how little Captain Hammer thinks of it.
Well, yeah, and him just shoving, like Penny, shoving her into the garbage instead of just pulling her out of the way or something.
Yeah, it's very much
he's very extra.
Yeah, very extra. In like I said, it adds to the zaniness of the world.
Even pushing her, did he know the trash was there?
No, I don't think he did.
It was a large pile.
I don't think he did, and if he did, I don't think he cared. So
I don't think he cared.
Yeah, if he
Probably
did,
not.
yeah, it could go. It could function as both. Either he didn't notice it, or he didn't care, and both are valid answers because they both would be in character.
Yeah, I'm just imagining, like, if Penny's like all scraped up and bleeding, and he goes, "Don't worry, citizen, saved your life. You're welcome."
Yeah, I think Nathan Fillion did a good job with this character. I really liked his intro here, where he hops on the van. I love his stances, where he's like all macho.
Yeah, it's great.
When he jumps off the van and lands in front of someone, this the pose he makes. Stay calm, citizen. I don't know.
The van's going all wild, and he's just talking to someone on the street.
It's very what's it called? It's very it's very showboaty. Like you use the Boaster Gold aspect of it.
Yeah.
There was another
a little bit also. Sorry to cut you. Fans of Ratchet and Clank, Captain Quark kind of does the same thing.
Yeah, I tried to remember. There was a good example of a character like this, and I don't remember where they're from, and it's bothering me.
Perhaps he'll come to you.
Yeah, maybe.
Also shows a level of intelligence with him that he figured out exactly what was wrong with the car. Yeah. He saw this little bobble on the roof and punches it.
Yeah. Or he saw the block and just realized what he needed to do to stop it.
I mean, that's also like pushing the big red button. Because he just lets the car go crazy, and he's like, he didn't fully solve the problem.
He was just removing his full control of it temporarily. He saw it was part of the problem, yeah.
I don't know why, that just made me think of like Captain Hammer removing a face hugger off, Trooper, and being like, "You're saved," but doesn't know about the chest burster inside.
I'm a hero.
You can also see them in song, Captain Hammer and Penny being flirty, which is set up for Act 2.
Which he finally gets to look at her. It's like, oh, okay, you're pretty cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question, which is relevant, I guess, in this act, did he get together with her because he knew Dr. Horrible was interested in her? Because in his previous blog, he talked about her not by name, but he has a crush with someone, and he sees her. He could have seen them talking in the alleyway while he's waiting for the heist. I don't know how connected that could potentially be here, because we know his motivations later when he talks to him directly about
when it's obvious who he is. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's.
I'm leaning on no.
I think it could be interpreted either way. I'm leaning in no as well. And the reason I'm leaning towards no is it's kind of implied that he goes through a lot of girlfriends, or he says as much as like, but this one might be the one kind of thing, because the fact it implies that he dated around a lot.
Yeah. He seems to give Penny a double take too.
Yeah, it can be 50-50 though. Like I said, I can definitely see that being a take to walk away from. But I personally lean towards the other one.
I don't think it is either. I was just throwing that out as a possibility.
Well,
that's all I got for the act.
Okay, Ryder, do you have anything else for Act
1? I do not at the moment. If I find anything, I'll bring it up.
All right, sweet. We'll go into Act 2, which begins at Act 2 and ends at Act 3. For better clarification, starts with
Stop throwing loops.
Starts with the song "My Eyes" and ends with Captain Hammer getting stepped on.
Springs, you gotta stop throwing these curveballs at us, man.
Look, if you audience have watched this and know what I'm talking about, you are exactly following along and know what I'm talking about.
We know. We're just
Yes. But then again, maybe not every version of this has those title sequences. Maybe it's just continuous. I don't know. I've never seen a version like that, but
yeah. No, we're poking. We're giving you a hard time for fun. Okay.
All good. I'll begin with Act 2.
Okay.
I like. Hopefully, you both caught it. In the homeless shelter, Dr. Horrible replaces the soup horror.
Yeah, I caught
that. Yes, I did catch that too. It's quite funny.
Yeah, I rewinded it because I didn't know if he was there from the start, but he was not.
And it's a good little angle too, because someone comes to talk to Captain Hammer right when he's replacing the guy in the background. So the guy talking to Captain Hammer puts their head into frame to cover up Dr. Horrible in the back. So it's not just like an instant cut.
Yeah, and he's wearing a mustache, which is important for the disguise.
Yeah. And he's pouring soup not into any bowls.
Oh yeah, we're definitely. By the way, we're definitely applying the Clark Kent rule here of glasses being enough to disguise a person.
Oh, I'm like, this feels very Wile E. Coyote.
Absolutely, yeah. But I really also like the start of this act where he's just kind of staring into the camera, confounded. Like you can see the confusion and hurt in his face before it goes into the musical number.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Gives good pause. Also fun. Oh, go ahead.
I said first.
Okay, cool. I found a little. I don't know if it's a set design choice or a comedic bit, but it's interesting that the homeless shelter has two people outside warming by a garbage fire.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that.
It's weird that Penny goes on dates into the homeless shelter, but
they're taking two valuable seats and food from a homeless shelter.
I know. That to me was the weirdest part of the whole thing. Like
two people are outside because they're having dinner in here.
Yeah, like it would be one thing if they were both passing out food together, like they were serving, they were part of the serving line, like doing volunteer work. That would be something. But they're actually eating dinner there, like eating food from the homeless shelter.
Now, could you say that that's a character inconsistency on Penny?
Yeah, I did drop that down as a character inconsistency for Penny.
I think a little, yeah.
Captain Hammer, I don't care. He would not care. He's there for a date. He would do what Penny wants. So, like, if she chose this as a date location, he would absolutely go along. But I would have rather put them in the serving position, like they're behind the line, serving out portions of food. That would make more sense to me, and it wouldn't be an inconsistency with Penny.
She's eating the homeless's food.
Maybe this is why she's so attracted to Dr. Horrible. She's also got a bit of that evil in her.
I'm like, you couldn't have the Dr. Horrible joke then, swapping out, because they would have served him.
Well, you can, instead of having him swap out like in the cooking line, you could have him line up as a homeless man.
Yeah, still in disguise. Could disguise as a homeless man, stealing the homeless food, showing how much he doesn't care. So you can still have it work the other way around.
It would just be a reverse of the joke.
Yeah.
Crimson. Point for you.
Yes, I believe it is in this act. We get the montage of Dr. Horrible getting beat up by Captain Hammer
when
in the
he's
past, I
when he's
guess,
trying to make his
with the old film look.
when he's trying to make his decision to commit to going to a kill, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's during that. And I wrote down montage song once, implying, is this an issue for Sprinks?
Ooh.
That we get one montage of with the song.
What do you mean with the song? Like it's a song that has a
Every
montage
other
in it?
song is happening in a scene. This one happens for a montage.
Trying to figure out which song this is.
I think it's
the
the last
one where he's talking about killing. It was right after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
It's a
hammer's not
brand
my
new day.
fist.
He's talking about brand new day.
Montage of all the times he's been beaten up and how he can heal from the punches and all that stuff. That's a montage, and that's our only musical montage. So is that bad because it happened once?
It's a. I might be on a 60-40 here. I mean, that happened once. Yeah. The fact that it's short, they could have done it in other ways. But I think the My Eyes play of going around following dates could also be sensed as a montage. Just not as quickly as the one previously.
The what?
So, in My Eyes, still in Act 2, the song My Eyes, when Dr. Horrible's going around to the different date locations of Penny and Captain Hammer, could also be seen as a montage of going to shot of scene to scene to scene of an overacting one thing, whereas again with your the old school footage thing of being beaten up is also a montage of, I don't know if it's, I think it's the same location of the alley, but of going faster. Both are instances to me that could be seen as a montage, whereas the one you're pointing out is more typical of like the fast, quick cuts versus the My Eyes scene cut.
This is gonna. Well, we dug into Crimson's scale for a minute, so now I got a question for you, Springs. And then, what in your eyes is the difference between a transition and a montage? Because they transition from date location to date location.
They do.
But they don't. But it's not a. But it's not quote unquote a montage.
See that it goes into an example of Karate Kid for me, because Karate Kid has the quick montages and then it has the overarching like training montage, where it's not quick cuts, which is also transitions to.
You can use the Kung Fu Panda montage because they do a training montage in that too. That'd be more relevant, I guess, to the podcast.
True, in an example context. Yeah, even Kung Fu Panda, the montage of the training is a part of training, but it's not as quick as the example Crimson gave of the montage, which I am in agreement that it is, of the back like old beaten up tail stuff with the old footage look. I think what.
Sorry, I wanted to clarify real quick. When you say 60-40 at the very beginning of this, did you mean you're 60-40 leaning bad or leaning good?
Leaning bad.
Okay.
I think the use of My Eyes helps not make it 100% bad thing, but there are two uses of a montage instance, but they're not identical. But it's not, which is why it's 60-40, because it's like, oh, then wouldn't each montage be its own thing that only happened once? It's like, yes, but they're also both montages.
If you view them as both montages, like I kind of agree with writers' sentiment with the dating being more transitions than a montage.
I think what holds it as a montage to me is the fact that it's all encompassed in a song number. So it's all in one. Like Kung Fu Panda, the training there, it's all in one encompassed song. Even though that's an instrumental piece, it's still all in one of the training up to the dumpling.
Yeah. And
and
I
it's
think,
not like quick cuts.
yeah, I think what also helps the Kung Fu Panda montage, real quick, is the fact that it's not the entirety of the training. The capstone of the training is a scene by itself.
We also get another montage of Kung Fu Panda with Tai Lung's backstory as well.
Oh, that's true. There we go. Not a singular usage of montage in that. There we go.
Yeah. I think montage has, I don't know the exact definition of it, but there's more than just I think the classical thing is like the superhero thing. You see it with Batman. You know, like putting on the gauntlets, the boots, the belt, showing his butt or whatever. Yeah, the gear up. That's a good word. The gear up montage.
The Scott Pilgrim tying his shoes stuff.
A lot of people see the gear up. But I don't think every montage needs to be that quick to be considered one.
Nah, I don't remember Karate Kid enough apparently, because I'm trying to think of your other example of where the montages weren't quick.
When he's doing the
wax on, wax referring to classic off, or Jaden Smith?
Classic.
Yeah,
classic. When he's doing the crane kick out of the beach, the wax on, wax off, doing all the training with Mr. Miyagi. That's a montage, but it's not quick succession. Looking it up with Oxford Language Dictionary of montage, the process or technique of selecting, editing, and piecing together separate sections of a film to form a continuous whole.
That definition sucks.
Yeah,
that could just be a movie.
Yeah, that doesn't help at all.
Yeah,
that just says all
right. A montage.
Yeah, at that point it's just transitions or montages.
Yeah, the bullet point under it is a sequence of film made using the technique of montage.
Which
they use montage in the definition of montage.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
Definition.
It's funny. There's a reason. I also looked at the definition. I didn't bother reading it to introduce it to our discussion because I realized how useless it would be.
I mean, I can go to Wikipedia. Montage is a film editing technique in which a series of short shots are sequenced to condense space, time, and information. The term has been used in various contexts. In French, the word montage applies to cinema, simply denotes editing.
That one's better.
Better.
Short. That one says there's short, so there's a difference between just combining shots.
Man, the Oxford Dictionary. Man, once again, we see the UK lost to France in a war over definitions. Wow. Great.
I guess in that context of what it means, the 15-minute beginning of Up is a montage.
That's true. That would now be considered a montage.
So Crimson, I read
about the first definition. Okay, 640 leaning negative. Right.
They're both different uses of montage, but they go hand in hand with one another.
Let's see what else I got. I did put a timestamp in for a camera look, which I couldn't tell watching if it was an intentional one or not, because we talked about how Captain Hammer, he's looked at the camera and it's part of his character. I could not tell if this was intentional or not. And I'll post it in there, and I'm sure it'll go on Instagram. But it was a quick, like, half-second glance during the confrontation in the laundromat. Where he's like, I don't go to the gym. I don't need to go to the gym. That part.
That's funny. The screenshot you said is really funny.
Yeah. 23:36.
Well, he doesn't look at least it's not just a one-time thing. Let's crack a joke here. So
yeah, it's literally like 2 or 3 frames. It's very, very short.
Yeah, I would have an issue if it was one instance, but this is fine. It adds to more to the humor.
I'm in agreement. It definitely adds to him of still being showboaty, of like, I'm naturally this way.
Nathan Fillion, man, such a great actor, so underutilized.
He's got one of his best faces in this act, which is him about to get stomped on. I think that face you made is gold.
I want to.
I almost want to put that as like a background or something for me. It's so funny.
It's a good meme face. I love it.
The utter shock.
Oh my god! All right, I'm gonna my Instagram post for this one is increasing because I can't not include that.
gold.
Look, if you want to see what we're talking about, check out the Instagram.
Check out the Instagram when this short goes up that day at some point.
Another thing in my notes, at 1606, when Captain Hammer is in the paddle boat, going around, another use of overexposure. It's not as harshly as the last one, which I think reflects the buildings and everything to make it really white, and Dr. Horrible's lab coat.
Yeah, this is the sunlight
really
off of the water,
that.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, this just might be due to the day they're or in time they're filming it, because
they only
these
have 3
water
days,
scenes
right?
They had 6 days of filming.
6 days, sorry.
These type of water shots, especially at this angle, can be really difficult with the sun reflecting off the water. So I definitely think that scene in particular they did have to play with so you can actually see his face, because he would have been really dark compared to the bright water.
Yeah. It also shows off another superpower that Captain Hammer has.
Some speed.
Yeah, it's some super speed. So he has speed, strength,
Durability, I guess, if you want to count that as well.
Durability.
Pretty generic superhero stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty generic. It's understandable.
Yeah,
no flight.
No flight.
He's got a great outfit. Oh, very distinct.
Oh, yeah.
It's clearly on a budget, but it is a good outfit.
I might actually buy that shirt. Captain Hammer shirt.
He's becoming more of a fan.
Not a bad shirt. I like Nathan Fillion.
Maybe
I can make the shirt look just as good as he did, because he bulked
Easy
up
Halloween.
He bulked up for the job right there.
Yeah.
See his arms in this?
He's committed to every role that he plays. What did you? I actually quite liked Dr. Horrible's pie metaphor later on when they're both eating yogurt in the laundromat.
Yeah.
Where he's like, what if, he talks about like seeing a mask, going to no person to find out the mask is real all along. I thought it was a good metaphor. Even though he trails off over the whole thing, it was a good metaphor still. I actually quite liked it.
What if there's a third layer that looks a lot like the first layer?
Like a pie.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it makes sense too. It's
Yeah.
not just like made up joking.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone refer to the bottom of a pie as a layer, the bottom crust. But
he's technically correct. That's why I liked it. I'm now throwing this in there with the Shrek onion layer one, where we can. It's always referenceable now. I might throw this in at the world every now and again and reference the pie metaphor.
The layer beneath the layer.
Did anyone? I don't know if it's for the joke of it, and maybe you two have a different interpretation of the reason why. Do you understand why they're using sporks for frozen yogurt?
I wrote that as a question. I don't know. They even address it as a spork. So
I don't.
Are
you asking if I have an issue with it?
Like, what's the reason?
Why did they use that instead of a spoon? Yeah.
Oh, well, it's simple, because there's obviously nothing added into the yogurt that they're eating, but typically when people add stuff into the yogurt, like, bits of cookie dough and stuff like that. Or chunks of Oreo.
Thing?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a scoop thing. So whenever, at least in the yogurt shops I've been to, I always got sporks.
Oh, interesting. I guess just as a regional thing. I've never been to a yogurt shop or a frozen yogurt place that's had sporks.
They've all been spoons?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's, wow. How
I rarely see sporks anywhere.
How in the fuck? We used to live in the same area, Springs. So how in the fuck did we not?
The only place I ever see a spork is Taco Bell.
Yeah, Taco Bell does do their sporks. I don't know. Every time I went to a yogurt place, it's down to the original whatever the yogurt place it is. But yeah, the ones I've been to, they always had sporks. So I guess I'm not weirded out by it.
Interesting.
Cultural differences.
I guess it exists. Therefore, I don't have an issue with it. But it stood out as weird.
Adds to the zaniness of the world. It's so odd
I
for
guess so.
for you guys, I guess. I was so like, oh, cool. They have sporks. That's neat.
No, the issue I had with this scene was his sudden confidence to talk to her.
Well, I think at
The
that point,
confidence to bring her food, to start joking around with her. He isn't down in the dumps and wants to prove himself now because of the hammer stuff. And he talked to her once poorly,
well,
but
she
this
initiated the
just feels like,
conversation. So as far as that's happened, the
well, he
load's been
planned
lifted.
this though.
Oh yeah, obviously at least the food part
Uh,
of it.
yeah, so I feel like it's a big jump in his confidence levels. I don't know if they actually built up his confidence to confront her.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't know if this plays into a mental state. I think it might.
I'm fine with it, mostly because being jealous is a very good motivator.
I mean, yes, that's it. I think it's also like she talked to him, so now he like, oh, we're friends.
Yeah,
She knows me.
they talked, so the hardest part has already been done, even if it was a poor talk. Um, and obviously the frozen yogurt's just a means of he realized that she likes frozen yogurt, so here's something, another way of opening a conversation.
Yeah, what a crazy random happenstance.
Yeah, obviously it's intentional, but uh, yeah, I'm fine with it, mostly because you're right in the sense that it's a big jump in the confidence level, but the groundwork is there because we see him being jealous, and that is a very, very powerful motivator. So
I just see like building a relationship, at least especially one that you're nervous to jump into, as like steps. First, you start talking, you get small talk, then it gets more deeper, maybe giving each other stuff, and then getting into a relationship or something. I
it
feel like he skipped a step.
well, it's also
The
implied
whole
that
giving her something seemed
sorry,
like a step was skipped.
it's also implied that this has not been their first conversation. Now, since their first talk on the street, this is kind of implied that they have talked multiple times now at the laundromat because they recognize each other.
She said it's so dumb that we were coming here so long and never spoke. So I don't know if that implies they've been talking more than just the one time.
All right, maybe that is up to my interpretation. Sure.
Yeah, that I don't know.
I don't think there's enough definitive either way. But again, I don't have a motivation issue for him here.
Yeah, I don't see it as a issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's the jealousy aspect, obviously, and there's also the aspect of like, can't let Captain Hammer beat me again.
I think there's also the fact he doesn't have a lot of friends. He has Moist, which is a roommate. So someone actually
that's even
put
more
interest in him.
That's kind of that
that's
could
more
lend.
reason to make it more difficult.
Yeah,
He
that kind
doesn't
of lends to the introversion bit. But again, I don't have a motivation issue here, so it's just I, um you kind of brought it up, Crimson. If you were to add a scene between this and uh what's previously happened to make it so he's reached this point, what would you add?
um, I don't know if it's what I'd add. I think it's what I would take away from this scene. The the fact that he gives her the yogurt. He sits up confidently next to her. He's jokingly open. He's openly jokey with her. Uh, I do like that he is a little awkward when he's like, "Oh, this annoying chore," and she's like, "I love doing that." I think that was a good awkward interaction. But past that, it's all like pretty confident interaction stuff. So I think I would just reduce that
You would have
and
more
not add a
awkwardness.
previous scene.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
would.
more awkwardness. He seems too confident with what he's doing to me.
Yeah. I don't know why, Crimson, you tickled my brain. I was like trying to think where he came from. You're reminding me of when you're saying like a list and he skipped a step. It's reminding me of the Gravity Falls episode where Dipper is trying to talk with Wendy and he has like a whole list of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like that.
Yeah, I mean, I also like the bit where he corrects himself over the laundry thing because they're still getting to know each other. I like that bit a lot in the conversation.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a confidence issue though. I find that more as a like they're just still in the getting to know each other part of their friendship slash relationship.
Well, with body language alone, the him sitting up next to her, that's a confidence pose. That is not an uncomfortable, awkward pose.
Yeah, and like I said, that part to me is like I said, he could just be feigning it because he was really jealous. Like I said, that's where my I don't have an issue comes in. I'm trying to think of like how I would want to correct that and maybe portray that a little bit. Because he does stab himself with a spork. That's also funny. Um,
Crimson, are you
The funniest
familiar?
part of that is where it cuts away from it.
yeah.
Being that he did bring the ice cream tells me that this was planned
Yes.
for him. Are you familiar with the 4 rules of planning?
Maybe if you relay them, and I don't know a name associated to it.
Quoted wonderfully by another villain, Leonard Snark. You make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan.
Wow, a Flash reference. Didn't expect that.
I mean, his plan did go according to plan here, though, other than him stabbing himself.
I think that was throwing away the plan.
Okay.
She talked about Captain Hammer, which made the plane go off the rails.
Yeah, it does follow the steps of the plan. That being said, I think I'm gonna agree with you, Crimson. I think I would want more of the awkward confidence bit, just because I think that would be very entertaining. I don't think it's necessary, because it's a very very constrained time frame that we're doing all this in. If this was longer, I definitely think that stuff would be needed. But if that, I like those would be also be on the cutting room floor for me, because I think this scene does enough with all the jealousy aspect, at least to enough for him to even feign confidence. And then they get at least one awkward bit in there, which implies to me like they're still obviously trying to get to know each other. So
Okie dokie.
Right? That was Crimson's point, so let's go with a writer point.
all right. I love the transition cut between him saying "peace out, I'm going to go on a heist," to cutting back to him just getting like with the fucking bruise on his cheek, and he's like, "So apparently, Captain Hammer and the LAPD watch my blog." The joke really really landed with me. I know we kind of hinted at we have some points to make about the world building here, Crimson.
Yep.
But I'm getting out there that I really like the joke. It made me laugh. um, yeah, there are some world building issues here that have been introduced, and then this is taking in mind that even though this is supposed to be kind of a zany kind of world, so police presence.
Yeah, it's confirmed. They have police.
Yes.
They actively pay attention to the criminals. They're watching his blog, and they try to thwart his plan.
Well, they succeed in thwarting his plan.
But somehow he gets away, even when a car gets chucked at him. Which is my issue revolving the police. Well, one of it comes back later, where he had Captain Hammer and the police to apprehend him, and he got away.
He's wily.
They would need an explanation to how this guy got away from that. Yeah. Not just this cutaway. They stopped me.
That is true. We also don't know how competent the police are. We just know
I'm not willing to say they're freaking Looney Tunes characters. That's
well, no, but it also could have been like
there is a
police
level.
presence is one guy,
There is a level of some incompetence to them with how we see them handle
It's
the Wonderflonium earlier on, if that's supposed to be a police officer, mind you. But it's I think there would have been serviceable to have an explanation here, because how he kind of explains it away is just kind of implied that he just got away.
yeah.
Um,
And there would be more than one cop because it was an event.
and this is LAPD. This is in LA.
Yeah. So the only thing I could potentially give with Captain Hammer, at least, is he loves playing with Dr. Horrible. Because he could have apprehended him at the garbage stuff at the van if you didn't get distracted by
Pretty Woman.
Penny.
Yeah.
So he could be excused, but how he got away from everybody else, they need to explain it.
Yeah.
If he used his transmutator thing, his transmatter device, and he didn't turn to jelly or something.
Yeah.
That would also give relevance to it.
This is a that would give more relevance to that conversation, and I think this is one of those things where it could have been fixed by a quick line about how he got away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a bit of a world building issue that's introduced here. That being said, like I said, I still love the humor of the juxtaposition of the two scenes, going from complete confidence to like almost teary eyed when he's looking into the camera with a bruise on his cheek,
Mm-hmm.
and then immediately gets the phone call live on his blog from Bad Horse.
Also, nice little detail that the ringtone is the Bad Horse song.
Mm-hmm. A little detail.
Now, I was going to say, now with the phone call versus the letter, are they actually singing to him over the phone? Or is it three voices all in unison telling him what to do?
It comes down to what we believe they are, right? Franks, you were talking about how you think they're more like a narrative device of how he perceives how they wrote the letter.
Yes, like when he's reading the letter, that's what he's hearing in his head.
So I would imagine you would think the same with the phone.
I think the phone is them actually talking to him, but his head is like, but that part is more visual, musical to the audience.
Okay, so you think there's like three different variants of these guys then?
Not variants. I mean, it's three dudes.
Interactions. I mean, three different interactions like that.
Yes, the letter, the phone, and then at the party. And at the party, I think they're physically there. I don't think that's just like a gag of Dr. Horrible walking by them and it's just like, oh, they're present. It's a joke thing.
I gave an in-universe explanation as to why they always show up for Bad Horse stuff, but we don't really see anything with that, so we are just kind of left to interpret what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Or sorry, I gave quote-unquote a potential explanation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spricks.
That's me.
Yes. We'll get the port. Yeah. Pitchforks. I can't talk today. You didn't say your thoughts on the police thing, because usually that's an issue you have with movies.
It usually is, but then again, I think it would be more so for me if we saw the actual presence of the event, of what's there. Because again, it could be one police officer and just is present, and Dr. Horrible is making it sound like a lot to make him sound like a lot of people are watching the blog. We don't have a number of people actually watching the blog. We have two people who wrote in.
Three.
Actually, no, three people. Sorry, three people who wrote in, and then that Captain Hammer is there and Ryder, I know with you, you'd say no, it was specifically stated. It could be interpreted from Dr. Horrible that Captain Hammer watches the blog. Just because his presence is there at the event doesn't mean he watched to listen. Like someone else told Captain Hammer where he'd be and got there.
That would be, yeah. I mean, again, that would be kind of based off of what happened at the event that we don't see, because Captain Hammer could let that slip while he's playing with his food. Like, well, I learned you were here, Doctor, because, I watched your blog.
Yeah.
You idiot. That sort of thing.
Because that goes into Captain Hammer actually watching Dr. Horrible's blog on his spare time.
Yeah.
to me, it finds a little more believable if a police is like, yeah, I keep in with the villains or the wannabe villains, and heard Dr. Horrible is going to be at this event, and heard it through word of mouth.
I went back to see what the event was because I didn't remember what it was called or what it was.
For the mayor?
The mayor's dedication. There was absolutely be more than one cop, as you keep saying. We don't know if there's more than one. There's absolutely more than one cop at the mayor's dedication. There would be protection there, especially in a world with bad guys. We have villains here that are established to be known by civilians. So there would be a police presence at the mayor's dedication.
I just don't know how big the police thing. I mean, when the statue's revealed, is that the mayor in Act 3? Bringing Captain Hammer up to the podium?
Probably.
Either way, it's a figure of authority.
I don't know if they say mayor.
I don't know if it's. I don't think they say mayor, but it's clearly someone of authority.
Okay, then I guess that's fine to slip by, because if that's the mayor, there's no police presence at that location. But two different things, two different importance on the tier of mayor versus whoever this other authority figure is. I also don't know if it just plays into them thinking Dr. Horrible's a joke. Like don't waste too much effort on this wannabe. Like they let him get away kind of thing.
That would be something to it as well. But I don't know, because we don't, like I said, that's a lot of this can be fixed in a single line of dialogue, but we don't know anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of don't knows. Like the bag that smells like human. We don't know if that actually is a human he murdered.
No, human with a C. C-U-M-I-N.
Oh, human. Oh, a lot better. Okay, it smells like. I thought he said human.
Drake and Josh's dad's allergic to.
Whew,
yeah, I thought
wow, that would
human.
That was very bloody. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's why I'm in the thing. He doesn't murder people unless he can get away with it. He'd rather not. I can see why you walked away with a different interpretation. He just doesn't want to murder kids. But no, it smells like a spice that you cook with, not an actual person.
I did not watch this with subtitles.
I didn't either. I heard the C.
But yeah, I think they just don't see him as threatening as others to put their effort into.
See, I don't see enough to assume that. The only thing I get is that Captain Hammer's like that. There's no reason to assume the police think that. So I'm not going to assume that they think he's too level to even care about. Even though we could just capture him now, that I'm not going to throw that bone.
Well, I think Captain Hammer's presence gives it there. Like, oh, Captain Hammer's here. He'll deal with Dr. Horrible. And I guess from earlier seeing it with the Penny situation, Captain Hammer was just too distracted by Penny's figure to apprehend Dr. Horrible getting away with the Wonder Florium.
Yeah. Well, we got to go off with that scene. He doesn't seem as big enough problem to focus on. He focused more on her.
Yeah.
So if he's more distracted by Penny, that gives me more thought that it's actually her beauty rather than his plan to get at Dr. Horrible because it's the girl he likes.
I've been thinking about it because we talked about this being a world building issue. I think the one line of dialogue that I would want to add would be related to the transmogrifier that you brought up, Crimson. That he fixed the problem, so it's just so he didn't come out as paste. So it shows that he is constantly making his inventions better, which adds to character. It explains how he gets away from such a police presence and Captain Hammer working together. And we can make the assumption that his apartment / lair is hard to find.
Yeah. It's also that. Is the blog traceable through the...
I'm sure he's just using NordVPN. But,
me.
Could be.
Yeah, it was just me.
Yeah. So
yeah, this came in the same year as Kung Fu Panda, Dark Knight, and Iron.
What a hell of a year, man! Like, seriously, what a year for movies. 3 videos in a row now. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that would fix it. That just that one line of dialogue. This is definitely fixable in terms of world building issue. Um, but without it, we're left with a lot. I think the biggest damage that's done to the world building of this is just the open amount of questions that we suddenly are left with without any reasonable answers to, because we can infer answers all we want, but we have nothing solidified. So I can write as many headcanons as I want as how we got away. I just have nothing to add to this because it's. He refers to the LAPD and Captain Hammer like as in general groups, and I'm assuming there would be more than one cop in the LAPD, the police department, even in this strange world with heroes and villains, especially when
overall I agree.
Yeah.
At the event, don't know.
Yeah. So it is an overarching issue. I think that's introduced here with all but the specificity of it, we're left in the unknown because they don't give us much details. Yeah, so I guess that's my final thoughts on the world building issue. I'll turn this over to anyone else who wants to bring up a point or talk more about it.
I'll just jump to a point. Also, kind of shows like the budget and time for the film when Captain Hammer explains the night him and Penny are going to have to Dr. Horrible at the laundromat. You can clearly hear the background traffic of the cars being picked up. So it's not a closed, quiet set.
His blog?
No, not the blog. When they're at the laundromat and he identifies Dr. Horrible and knows who he is before the song Brand New Day.
Oh, it's obvious that they're filming on location, you mean?
Yeah, you can hear the traffic of cars in the background while he's talking.
Yeah, that's
and they
LA
try
for
to
you.
bump up his audio a little.
That's LA for you.
It was also not them going with a clean new take.
I mean,
you don't know how many takes they took.
That
could
true.
have been the best one. So.
That's also true.
And it's Joss Whedon. I'm sure he took several. I was glad that Captain Hammer did recognize him, because when he didn't initially, I'm like, "Oh God, this is dumb."
Yeah. When he says you look horribly familiar, at that point I just assumed he was messing with him.
I thought it was just a joke for the audience, but it wasn't.
Could be one and the
entirely.
same.
Yeah, wasn't entirely a joke for the audience. I do like the line right before he shows up, which is, "Oh goodness, look at my wrist, I gotta go." And he looks at his wrist. It was really, really funny. I like that. You can hate Joss Whedon for all the reasons in the world, but you can't deny man's an artist.
A lot of good stuff. They produced a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
I find it comical that Dr. Horrible just has this huge lounge chair.
Oh, yeah, that he's very small when sitting in.
Yeah.
I definitely think
that's not a fixed angle funny thing. That's an actual prop.
Yeah, I saw some behind the scenes stuff of other people sitting there. Yeah, that's a giant chair that he has. I just took that as he just saw that villains need to have giant chairs they can sit in.
I guess so, but it also plays off the little like saying that he's small.
Well, I mean,
he's trying to be big, but he's small.
It's true, he is. He dreams big, though.
Yeah. I do like that when Penny says, like, what about your laundry? He actually cares to what she says.
Yeah, and then goes to check on his laundry. Oh, yeah, I don't care enough about this. Something like that.
I don't love these.
Which is funny. I mean, like, I would be the same if I needed to quickly leave and one of my favorite shirts was in the laundry, or I was worried I left a favorite shirt in the laundry. Yeah, I would do a double check real quick.
I guess, Crimson, you got another point?
I'm perusing, and nothing really coming to mind for this act. I think Nathan Fillion did good with this one-on-one confrontation scene, rubbing
appropriately
Dr. Horrible's face in Penny.
Appropriately a douchebaggy and appropriately comedic.
Putting the villain in his place.
Yeah.
I'll show her the command center, the hammer cycle,
the hamjet.
Hammer's my penis. Funny line.
Yes. That would be my guess for Sinister's favorite joke.
I would assume so.
I could agree.
Yeah. And funny enough, that I was watching the behind the scenes for this because there was a 20-minute documentary on YouTube. They talk about that being the Josh Whedon's favorite line in the film. That they worked so hard to try and get that delivery right because it's such an absurd joke.
Either was.
So then, in his mind, he's Captain Penis.
Well, he's being a dick to everybody, so that works.
Yeah.
But
He named himself after a body part.
I don't know if he went that far, but it's definitely.
Well, no, it could be,
There's a lot of phallic metaphors you can make out of Captain Hammer jokes. So.
Ryder, anything else you have for Act 2?
Let's see. I quite like Penny's song to kind of, kind of get fucking what's his name, Dr. Horrible, main character of the show. I like the sorry, the caffeine's leaving me. You know how it goes.
Oh, good.
It's I like the song that Penny sings to him. And I like that she's kind of helping him get over it. And I like the way he frames the issue when he's complaining about it, because he now has to kill somebody in order to get into the league, and he doesn't want to do that. So I kind of like that Penny is being supportive, even if she doesn't know the context what she's being supportive of. And I quite like that this scene clarifies who Dr. Horrible wants to kill. And that leads into his final song about how he's now suddenly found the motivation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job with the visuals of him being giant, all things considered, budget and all.
Yeah, the green screen effecting.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably the worst part is you can see the edges of him don't look great. But overall, the people down below don't look horrible. It adds to the campiness of it, or cheesy, whichever definition. I don't remember because we've said that like
campy, corny, cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are all interchangeable.
But it was very.
Oh, no, we covered those in the changeling.
We did.
Very, very
oh
good.
Yeah, you're right. We did. I'm remembering now, belatedly.
And Brain Dead. I think we also brought that up.
Got to earn your cheese, ladies and gentlemen. Earn your cheese.
Good usage of fixed camera angles.
Yeah.
They show big and small.
Yeah, and look forward to Captain Hammer's face about it being crushed on the Instagram, because that's hilarious, and Ryder will be using that as a meme going forward. So,
good one.
Last thing I have for Act 2 is when they're inside the laundromat, you can tell that it's probably afternoon outside, kind of how bright it is, but focused on the inside. When Dr. Horrible starts after kind of like the not rap, but the quick part of Brand New Day and goes outside behind them, following them, it's now
it's probably like 5 or
darker.
6 or something.
Yeah, sun is setting.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really go with the lyric of "and the sun is high."
When his imagination when he would kill him midday, or does he say that line while he's following them outside at night?
When he's following them outside, I believe it's a brand new. It starts with "It's a brand new day and the sun is high," I believe.
Yeah, the time they filmed it was either in the morning or right before night. With the kind of hard to tell actually with the sky.
Time has passed though from him inside the laundromat to then following them outside the laundromat, where they've walked 5 steps.
I also don't think he physically followed them outside.
No,
No.
They didn't react at all.
Yeah.
I'd have a problem if that was actually something.
I'm just saying in tandem with the timeline, I guess, of that.
It's probably intentional because obviously he's now has much darker intentions, so they kept it nighttime.
So in that case, did he just stand in the laundry? Well, no.
I think you're taking it too literally what happened in that scene. as soon as he stepped outside and it's nighttime, I realized that it's more of a fantasy, his song right now.
Yes. No, I'm in agreement with that it is because it's later in the day, but I also don't know if that's like the fantasy he picks up when he's leaving the laundromat. Like now that Dr. Horrible and Penny are gone, did he finish his load of laundry and then leave? And by that time, that's what the environment is, and he's just visualizing the two of them walking away because that's the last he saw of them. It could be that.
It could be. It could also just be metaphorical lyrics where he's referring to himself. Like he's now reached the point that he's willing to kill someone, which is a new thing for him. So brand new day, the sun is high. He's really high on this emotion of wanting to kill someone. He's never felt that way before.
That's true. Because that's what Bad Horses instructed him to do.
Yeah.
That's how he can get into the league now.
Yeah. That's how he can get into the league.
I like they're creative.
Yeah. It's now that's how he can get into the league, and it's also how Captain Hammer made him feel like, oh, I actually want to kill him now. He was just a nuisance to interrupt my plans before, but now I have an actual want to kill him, which is
he's now stopping love. He's hammer blocking.
Yeah, hammer blocking. But
all right, I guess the last thing from me in this act, it's kind of a two-parter. It's in relation to the songs, because I haven't really been talking about the songs too much. It's the first song in this act that we covered, where he's stalking them. Yeah, My Eyes. I did like the line and the delivery of, but it's pain to see evil inside of me is on the rise. I think that was probably his best singing part in the movie. That line, musically, is what I'm saying. Lyrically, it's mundane, but the way he sang it was good. I imagine he sang it. I think they all sing their parts.
Yeah, right? Neil Patrick Harris.
I would believe so. Yeah,
Neil Patrick Harris.
They all sound.
They're all classically trained. They can sing.
So I think that was probably his best musical performance, was that part. But music as a whole in this act, the song where, I guess it's the same song actually, where him and Penny are kind of going back and forth later in this part, this montage, as we put it, really has some connections with the Buffy episode. Connects with the song I'll Never Tell and Standing in the Way and Under Your Spell. Joss Whedon really likes his duet songs where they overlap and talk over each other. It seems to be something he really enjoys to do.
It's very hard. It's a very fun trope to do in musicals. I quite like them. They're expressing, both like the parallels of their characters and the differences at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Crimson, do you have the release date of that Buffy musical episode? Like how close it was to 2008 when this was made?
It was
2001 or 2002.
Oh, okay.
The musical episode. I can look. It's one of those two.
Well, while you're looking, should we move on to Act 3, Springs?
Ryder, if you have no other act, or if you have no other points for Act 2, then I believe so.
Yeah. As it turns out, I did not write in the full act, so yes, I'm good to go.
All right, cool. We'll move on then to Act 3, which is from Act 3 to the credits, after credits. But again, more specifically, that is from the news report to the last blog word. It says a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I got it.
All right. What is it?
November 6, 2001.
Okay, so a 7-year difference. Well, said November
ish. Yeah.
Okay, so
there's wiggle room for
6.5 year. Yeah, ish.
Ryder, you're gonna.
Yes, I want to start with the news. You brought it up as a potential quote at the beginning. Captain Hammer, I hope to set an example, for children and stuff. And the news just fawning over such an obvious, feigning care.
What a hero!
Yeah, it's this is what we call very funny world building. So we can see how they look up to heroes, regardless of whether they should be looked up to or not, is in question.
Yeah, it's a good comedy right there.
One
that is easily missable if you're not actually reading anything.
It's true. I quite like it. It's very, very strong and fun. And then we meet his fan club, right, as well, that are stalking him, and how they all because they're important because they become horrible.
The ones that do the weird stuff.
Yeah, they're the ones that become Doctor Horrible fans at the end because they made Captain Hammer single again. He made Captain Hammer single again.
Maybe, yeah. Captain Hammer isn't as cool anymore.
Yeah.
Well, he ran off crying.
Yeah, he did.
Like a baby.
Like a baby.
I'm not doing that.
Come on, Sprinks. You say it better than anybody. Come on.
No.
Come on. The audience wants it.
Like a baby. Now, Crimson, you said a Captain Hammer shirt. I can see you more in the fan group shirt.
No.
Nathan Fillion's face on it.
No, you can't.
You're more of a fan of Nathan Fillion than Dr. Horrible.
You can't see me wearing that.
Yes, I can.
That's not even well designed.
Exactly. That's why you're like, it's from the movie, but it shows off your Nathan Fillion fandom.
Oof! I have a couple Castle shirts. Okay, I got some music.
All right, cool. There. Does anyone know? I may have missed the context. Do you know who the pink villain is with Moist?
I thought it was Bait and Switch, and then I realized nope, because it's like a DB or something with the initials on the outfit.
I thought it was 2Ps.
Was it 2Ps? No. It certainly wasn't BS.
No.
But I don't know if it's one of the ones he referenced by name at some point.
Okay.
But I don't know who it is.
I like the line from the song "There is no happy ending, not for me anyway." When I think Dr. Horrible says that in the opening song for this act.
Yes.
Which is true because he's.
So they say.
Yeah, so they say. And it is set up because he does not get a happy ending.
I don't know if you two spotted it. There's a detail I noticed in the song, so they say, when Penny is seen at the laundromat alone with the frozen yogurt, there's 2 doors to the laundromat behind her. One of them is blocked by a bench. I don't know if that's been that way the whole time.
I don't remember that.
I didn't notice it at all, so I don't know.
Okay. There's just an angle that's more on it to visually see.
Yeah, couldn't tell you. I don't know why I would be there in the first place.
What do you got, Crimson?
I have something. Okay, fine. I'll just go towards the end here. So the freeze ray works. Was there a charge up to it?
Possibly. He was standing there for a while.
Possibly. He was under that.
Really wish there was like a hum or something that we could hear the charge up, because that was the problem he had with it on the bridge, was he didn't realize there was a start time with it. And that would have been really nice. A nice detail is if you just hear a slight hum and then it fires, so you know it's actually there charging. But he gets shot during his speech. No charge up that we get to see.
Yeah,
you could
infer it that he fixed it.
I would, I can label that as.
But it would have been nice if there was an audio cue there.
No, they used the audio cue for the squeaky goggles.
That's true.
I'm kind of in agreement. Yeah, they could have.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like an easy thing to keep the continuity of the weapon.
I really like that they. Sorry, I was moving on.
Go ahead.
I I really like they keep Captain Hammer appropriately dislikable. So he's like, even though he's putting on a show, he's constantly calling the homeless bums, and it's more of a, not caring about the mentally ill. It's very,
You compared them to dogs.
yeah, it's not subtle, but because that's not the right word. But I like the snide remarks underneath the layer of feigned enthusiasm for being a hero, because it shows that he's not. Keeps him dislikable.
Now you got me. I'm trying to think of what it's called. Yeah, because it does have a word.
Subtlety is not it.
Oh well.
It's just
No, it's not. It's not like a backhanded compliment, but it's not a compliment. It's the inverse.
Backhanded insults. There we go. Let's just call it that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I found it pretty amusing. I didn't like that Penny was picking up on it though, because he's pretty much been like that this whole time. I don't feel like that was a character moment for him to reveal to her.
Funny enough, I thought the part that weirded Penny out was when he started talking about their relationship. Like when he says
that's
that.
When we first cut
more
to her.
publicly.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, Crimson. It feels like he's easier to be tolerated in the environments Penny's in, like their date at the homeless shelter, and he's just like shaking hands and being okay. He's not actually calling anyone bad. He's not dissing on anyone.
I mean, she sees him brush the dirt off his shoulder and has a face of disgust when he looks at them.
And an aversion to like geese and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, so there are stuff of him not loving being near the homeless people.
Though I guess that's all speech. I guess it's speech versus like character actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the only time
I guess there's a level of inference because we do get time between them that we just see bits of, and I would imagine there'd be stuff in between that we don't see, but we don't get to see it.
I find it interesting that when he has his cue cards say "I hate the homeless," and then he has to go to the next one to add "nis."
Yeah.
So he must be writing pretty big words on those cue cards.
Well, I don't think he's smart, so he can't read.
That also could be it.
It's funny that this is the inverse of the Iron Man getting rid of the cards because he doesn't need it. in a weird way.
Yeah, Captain Hammer gave an inspiring speech.
To sheep, yes.
Everyone was clapping.
But everyone's a hero?
But me more so than others, yeah.
You're a hero. You're a hero. I'm more of a hero.
Yeah. You and mostly me and you.
Yeah.
There's one line in there that I think might be the time of 2008, but
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Tartar sauce?
Yes, tartar sauce.
Yeah. I feel like you were going to bring
Don't worry if it's hard if you're not a friggin' blank.
Tartar sauce.
Yeah, I've been banned from saying that word on the podcast. I know what you're talking about.
I just went, wow.
Yeah, it's definitely of the times.
Let's see. I'll go with something here. The evil. Well, no. I'll go with the spotlight that's on Captain Hammer when he's singing "Everyone's a Hero." That then cuts to slipping when Dr. Horrible goes around singing his song. It's still present of a spotlight, but instead of the nice warm yellow, it's now gone to a more
cold
blue. It's not fully blue, but it's it's white, a white light. So, and it reminded me, kind of with how it was reflecting everything, more of a surgical room, like a doctor's office. Well, doctor's office more of that translucent, the lights that hurt your eyes.
Fluorescent?
Tubes. Fluorescence. Is that what I'm thinking? Yeah. Not that doctor office look. But
yeah, fluorescent.
I guess more surgery.
The flickering lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, talking about the lighting, my favorite lighting is, spoiler alert, Penny dies. After the explosion, when all the photographers are taking pictures of Dr. Horrible, like looking down at the body, and we can like see like the flashes and the profile and like his shot like profile in the back behind him. That was my favorite lighting in the whole film, right there.
It's good.
Because you can like the really really dark profile being amplified by all the photography, and it adds to the whole like crazed sensation of how he's probably feeling as well, because he obviously didn't intend for that to happen.
Well, no. Yeah, that was an accidental death, but so counted as the murder.
Yeah,
to get into the league.
And because he also hurt a hero in the process of it.
Yeah.
So there's more reason for
it. Right, I don't know if it touched your mind or you too, Crimson, but it immediately went to the what did it cost? Everything.
Yep, it's a meme that's everywhere, and that's what I thought. It's like, this is the price that you paid.
My mind didn't go there, but I can certainly see that.
I didn't go there immediately, but it's because it's so ingrained. I just it was on the background,
Yeah, the part where she is dead or dying. I don't remember the exact moment the line is said, but one of the reporters says, "Dr. Horrible, why did you kill her?" I'm like, "Are you stupid? Did you think he tried killing her? That was obviously a byproduct of him trying to kill Captain Hammer.
Yeah.
There's no reason why he killed her. It happened."
Yeah. The line that really hurt though was, "Don't worry, Billy. Captain Hammer will save us."
Yeah.
That hurt. That was a very, very like. Whedon's very good at script writing, as it turns out. That was definitely a very, very good line. Yeah, that's something she said. You don't remember that?
I thought she said Captain Hammer would say it would be all right.
No, he said it'll be all right. Captain Hammer will save us. Implying that she didn't know Billy was responsible for her death, which just added more to the tragedy. And how distraught he looked, which the lighting thing I really liked helped out with.
Okay, I have the scene up. Yeah, she says, "It's okay, it's okay." Captain Hammer would say that.
And would save us. Is what she says. Okay. I heard "save us."
I have the shooting script. Currently looking at it. Penny's lines is "It's okay, it's okay. Captain Hammer will save us."
Oh, well, the subtitles are wrong on YouTube.
Yeah, that's YouTube for you.
Whoopsies. Well, that makes that. Actually, I don't know. Both I think actually work. But
and then the press, "Why'd you kill her? Was this all part of your plan? Over here, why'd you do that, Dr. Horrible?"
Yeah, presumably the press just ran into the building at that point, which would be weird. But this is the kind of universe that apparently the press will interview the villains. So
the press will get there before the police.
Also, here in the script, I guess it's also true. Penny says, "Billy, is that you? Are you all right?"
Yeah, it implies that she doesn't know he's responsible. Oh, skip it over some other good shots. I really like the Dutch angles that gets more angular when he's like walking towards a frozen Captain Hammer in the middle of the crowd.
Yeah, I was almost going to touch on that. The evil Dutch angles.
Yeah. Very, very classic, but I assumed you want to touch on that if you have anything more to say about it.
No, it's a good use of to demonstrate a change in his character.
Yeah.
Like he's actually getting a little more evil, like really showing the physicality of the thought of murder.
Yeah. Let's see. What's another thing I got? Oh, I love where he pauses to talk to the reporter. It's 2 L's. Showing that he's doing this to get into the league. He wants the infamy. And it's comedic. I like it.
Problem I have with the reporters, other than just the stupid line, is the news segments that pop up later. saying,
What's her name?
yeah, what's her name? I went back to see if Captain Hammer says her name during the speech, and he absolutely does call her Penny. So they know who her name is.
Yeah, they do, but honestly, again, going with the whole zany, weird world that we're in, they obviously don't care about her. They cared about Captain Hammer.
That's true.
Well, then that one wouldn't have bothered even saying people mourn for her. They would have done what the other one said, and Captain Hammer's girlfriend died. That one makes more sense if you're going at that angle. Why would they even have the other one then?
Well, I mean, she's still someone quote unquote important who died. It's just in the lens of Captain Hammer's girlfriend. Though I get what you're saying, like their press are being dumb. I agree. That's exactly what they are.
Yeah, they know her name. Shoot,
Well,
I had a good point and I didn't have it written.
I'm like, Crimson, sounds like you got something to say.
I did.
now we're waiting at the edge of our seats, man.
Shoot. I lost it. Go, someone else go.
I find it in working with Captain, keep flipping them, with Dr. Horrible, that he doesn't fully like test everything out. So like the freeze ray has a time limit or a charge before it
tests
stops.
Everything.
Yeah, and the death ray is extremely fragile. Like it just touches the ground out of his hand, and that bump causes it to become unstable.
Yeah, or it overheats because he shot it too much. We're not really sure. But yeah.
Ooh, I didn't think of that.
Either way, it's an unstable weapon.
Yeah.
So we both had different points to come to the same conclusion. I like the irony that Billy was still working up the courage to kill Captain Hammer at the end of it, and Captain Hammer committed to the idea of killing Dr. Horrible more quickly when he had the weapon. Because Billy was still working up the courage before the freeze ray interrupted him before that was broken. So like he's like, you gotta come on, Billy, buddy, you gotta man up or whatever is kind of what he said in the song.
Yeah, and at that point, Captain Hammer actually saw him as a threat there because he even said he upgraded to a death ray or something.
Yeah, this looks like Billy Buddy's moving up in the world. That sort of thing. Yeah. So I like that. Even then, Captain Hammer had committed to murdering first. It's a very small thing, but I quite like it because it adds more to, I guess, the loss of innocence that Dr. Horrible's going through in this part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I found one of my jokes in my notes. Penny is dead, shrapnel, rough buddy. And I said, God damn it, Joss. How could you come up with a compelling story in 40 minutes and Zack Snyder couldn't do it in 4 hours?
Shots fired.
Well, times have changed.
Yeah, times have changed.
JJ had some good stuff going on at this time. 2008, Fringe came out.
Yeah, when did Lost come to an end? Springs, you would know that, right?
2007.
Okay, yeah. So, I guess it's debatable whether that's because it's debatable how that well ended, as far as I understand it, being an outsider. But yeah, times are still good.
All right, how does everyone feel about the end? Was it a good feeling ending? Not like it was a happy ending, but did it feel like the movie built up to this? Was it a good payoff to everything?
Yeah, I would say so. I quite enjoyed the payoff to it. I didn't know quite what I was going to get, but I still found the ending satisfying. And now that he's paid the consequences for what's happened,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, writer made me second guess. I was incorrect. Lost was 2004 to 2010.
All right.
Well, you're in the middle there.
Yeah.
Or somewhere.
I had some I guess I have more notes on the skeletal, the flashing of the camera when he's over Penny's body. I said the camera flashes in the scene really add to a sort of exposed skeletal haunting look to Doctor Horrible. Um, that was in my notes, and I quite like that, so I'm gonna say no.
Yeah. Is it a? Does it actually fit a cliche? Cliche, like the death of a significance or something, and then flashing camera. I feel like
Uh,
that's done multiple times.
yeah, I would say it's a cliche, but as I always say, it's about execution, not necessarily that it's a cliche.
Yeah, I'm not saying every cliche is a bad thing. I'm just saying it's happened multiple times in events.
Oh,
Because the one that comes immediately to mind, I think, is King Kong. When King Kong falls off the building and dies, and I forget the actual name, but like the damsel in his hand is still alive because he saved her. Its camera's going off even though he died.
Spoilers for King Kong.
spoilers for
Oh,
King
sorry for those who don't know King Kong.
Kong.
He could have been shipped back to his island.
Somehow. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Shoot, Springs, you just kind of brought up a conundrum in my head about what you just said about cliches.
Oops.
Yeah, I'm debating on whether bringing it up now or bringing it up for the recap, because it's
I mean, since you brought it up now, I mean,
yeah,
fresh on the mind.
yeah, it's fresh on the mind. Okay, all right, I'm gonna bring it up now. Springs, you just said that you don't mind cliches so long as they're well executed. Why then do you not like the hero's journey as an archetype? Because you brought up how much you hate it and its repetitiveness in storytelling, when I would just file that under cliches in storytelling.
Okay, I feel like my words are being twisted here.
I
No,
mean,
you
that's
said
well,
that
that is what
I
you
think.
said. So back then, it's been a while, but
Back
that is
then,
exactly
yeah.
what you said. You don't have to answer now. Like I said, it's a recap question, so you can think
I know
about it.
you just stated the well. Oh my god, I'm totally blank. The cliche thing, as I said, not every cliche is a bad thing. I mean, I think it's really up to the person up for it. You know, it's like, oh, I've seen it so many times, I'm sick of it. And it's like, oh, actually, this is one I really enjoy seeing. It's a it's a very subjective thing. I think a cliche is.
Yeah,
The hero's journey is one that I necessarily don't care for because it feels like once you get the first two steps in, you know the rest. It's very, very predictable. And I think that's just something I'm again not for. I don't really care for the predictable ones that follow a path. I mean, it's again that's why I kind of like the ones that don't follow the same path of a hero's journey, which I think is 7 steps. But if it's
8.
like
But
one, two,
yeah,
three, and then it's like something completely different, it's like, oh wow, different. So it wasn't following.
well, in talking about the hero's journey, we talked about all the archetypes that file under each step in the hero's journey. So there's 1,000 cliches that fit into the hero's journey, which is why I just use that as a broad stroke. That's why I have the question, because now I'm confused about what you said in a much earlier podcast about the
Yeah,
hero's
now I'm
journey.
confused.
Yeah, what you said about the hero's journey is that you dislike it because it's repetitive. When all the hero's
Following the
journey
step,
is
yeah.
when all the hero's journey is a collection of cliches under each step.
I
You're
guess
right. That
then
was more
for
of a
the
recap question.
Yeah,
I guess for that is
exactly. We could table this for
predictability.
recap. Yeah. Okay. I didn't expect you to have an answer right off the bat. So.
It was going to be more connected to what we covered.
Yeah, do you have the point of people looking for this hero's journey context?
I don't,
I
but I
wish I did.
assume it's a recap.
Sorry, audience.
Yes.
I remember it vividly, but I don't remember which one it was. I am running low on notes, actually.
Funny enough, so am I. I'm trying to think. I quite like Doctor Horrible's red outfit. I kind of like to see that he's accepted into everything as well.
I like the detail of the outfit I like is that he's now in black gloves.
Yeah, because he's embraced the villain, the villainy.
Yeah, I mean they could be his own, but it's also kind of feels I mean they are his own. They're a lot more glossier than Captain Hammer's, but it does feel like a trophy. kind of sense.
Yeah, like the upgrade and everything.
Yeah, but like he defeated his nemesis and now he wears what they had.
Oh,
It's
I
like,
see.
it's in a lot of things, but it's like, you killed the big king of the dinosaurs and you wear their teeth around you as a necklace kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I could pull that much out of it, but it feels like the crowning moment of like when he's finished putting on his outfit. The last thing he puts on is the gloves.
Yeah. How do you both feel about the final line of the song, like, and I don't feel a thing?
Oh, I like it.
Okay.
I
Not
mean,
just the lyric of the song to end the song, but also the end of the film.
yeah, I think I mean, like he's realized that it's not all what it chopped up to be. It's not what he wanted. The way things turned out. So I like it because he's lost everything in order to get what he wanted. That's what
What
kind of
about you, Crimson?
the end of the song implies to me. Yeah.
I agree. I think it was a fitting end for it. I don't have much more to say on it. I agree with what the writer said on it. The I don't know. Do you guys like that we got to see the council, or whatever, the league?
I do.
I think it would have been better complete mystery to me. Like if we just saw him approaching the door to the league instead of
I
actually getting to see
don't
them.
think we needed to see the slow mo shot of everybody in the league looking at him, but I think the group shot is fine, where we see the horse at the end of the table, because that's obviously enough for us to figure out who that is.
I think that's the biggest payoff of it, and the
Oh
joke
yeah,
that
that's
that
the
horse
payoff.
is an
Yeah,
actual horse.
yeah, that is the joke and the payoff.
Uh, we also see kind of in the final song, we get to see the how not invested he is in doing what he is. Like robbing a bank is nothing to him when he's robbing in the bank with Moist.
Yeah.
You kind of just see how like bored he is with the whole thing. Okay,
I mean,
that to me
he
adds.
lost his love.
Yeah.
He lost his nemesis. His nemesis is a mess now.
Yeah. Man
And
goes
he
to
got his end
therapy.
goal.
Yeah. So what does he have anymore? He got
It's
to
a
his
lost
goal and
purpose.
it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just adds more into that final line, and like I don't feel a thing.
I did remember the point I was going to make earlier.
All right.
Something I like with the incorporation of the blog, because I've bashed on it several times. The first two acts start with the blog. The third one doesn't, and I think for a very intentional reason, being that they didn't know he was going to attack there because he didn't blog about it.
Yeah, he didn't broadcast his plans, and he's obviously too busy to blog because he's busy working on his stun ray, turning it into a death ray.
Yeah, we see him working on his stuff, but it is through the lens of the audience and not the blog. So he was smart this time. He actually didn't blog his attack because he realizes that it screws up everything.
Yeah, he's doing that as a precautionary measure because he wants to win.
With that, doesn't make it sound like being smart is more evil.
Yeah,
He's trying to be more evil and thinking about going into murder, so he's got to be a little more focused on that. So not blogging is a smarter move, but does that make him more evil?
I would say it does. Obviously, he's committed to being evil by this point. Well, mostly.
I guess technically he's more evil, but I didn't really see it that way. He's more focused. So I'll agree with that.
I guess I'm out of
Well.
notes. Yeah.
All right, so writer's out of notes. Crimson, you got any more?
I think that was the end of my notes, but I did bring up earlier that I was going to bring back the musical episode necessity point if I had any other points to potentially bring up with it. And did I? I do. So I see it as a creative direction on how to create a movie in this instance, short film, whatever.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yes. I keep having to cover my bases with it. And I look at something like Cloverfield, right? It's got a distinct style with the handheld shots, and it's heavily criticized due to the execution of the shots, not necessarily the choice of the shots. But you could say the choice of doing that made it worse, right? Did it actually help the film going with that? Should they have done something like the Matthew Broderick Godzilla, or just that's the only Godzilla I've seen, so that's my example, where it's more standardized. They do have some handheld shots with the camera guy there in that movie. So it comes down to creative choices and how do they bring enough to the table with the execution. And we did talk about muting it, and I did like that idea that Sprinks brought up to see if it stands on its own. And I think that is like that. I was also thinking, like, what if you had a romance movie, but the director wanted it to be a horror, but they didn't actually commit to it being a horror, like at a dinner table and just like a jump scare happens for no reason, but they want it to be a horror. Is the fact that it's a horror in air quotes good for the film? No, because it's just a romance film in the example I'm providing. So the want.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say two things. A, with the Cloverfield example, maybe we've covered Blair Witch, so we have more insight on that. Sure. Coverage. Secondly, with your example of a jump scare at a dinner table, I believe we've all seen it, but Unison, the feel of the first episode of WandaVision.
That one's more contextualized. I was more going with like a poor execution.
He's going with the tonal issue.
The weight of the weight of the choice.
Yeah. That would be
the execution.
That would be tonal issue in that scene. I don't know how I can't apply that to this. I think.
The WandaVision or the jump scare?
No, your jump scare idea. Oh. I know the argument you're trying to build, but that to me would be a tonal issue with that scene, not necessarily an issue with the fact that they wanted to make a horror.
It's more with the choice of the genre, right? Because musical's a genre, and just because the person wants to create the project in said genre doesn't mean it's inherently good for the story they're making. So, and then it just circles back to what I was saying in the beginning. Like, does the movie need it to be musical? You both said kind of objectively does it need to be, but it's fine being there. I don't know. Did my Cloverfield / Godzilla thing add to the conversation, or was it pretty much the same thing over again?
Feels like it was the same thing over again. I think whenever I approach that one, I always, because you're asking whether it needs to be, I always find that asking the inverse of the question is also good. So the inverse, I suppose, in the situation that we're provided here, is do movies now lack something of an art form by not being a musical? Because that's kind of what I feel like when you're asking a general question like that. I always try to compare to the inverse.
Yeah, that was like my League of Their Own example with the hike thing.
Yeah.
And if that was asked to me in relation to this, then I would say it doesn't need it.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, nothing is lost by doing the inverse, or in this case, by choosing to make it into a musical. Does that make sense?
No, I lost that
part. Wait, you lost what I said?
Yeah.
Okay, so like, here's a good example. Let's turn, for the sake of argument, a movie we've all seen, The Avengers. Let's turn this into a musical. It's also a Joss Whedon work. Nothing
But
is lost by turning it into a musical necessarily, but nothing would be gained from it either.
you don't think things would be lost during that movie?
Potentially. In my head, it's still going to be the same basic idea that would be going through it. It would definitely change it, and I'm not sure that I would still qualify it as a flaw inherently that they made the choice to turn it into a musical if it was. I can't fault it for their choice of making it so if that's something they chose to do. If they Now, if they created it and it was a bad musical, that would be something else. Like, I could talk about why it was a poor choice if it was a bad musical inherently. This one, not this.
Just because it's a choice doesn't make it inherently good, even if executed well.
Exactly. That's the point.
Like Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi. Let's say his changes were actually good.
Be careful.
No, he's saying by blanket statement, right? They were good choices, right?
Yes, his choices were good choices, in execution, but audience as a whole doesn't feel like it's Star Wars. His choices, but in world he manages to make them fit somehow. Is the collective opinion outweigh the creative and thoughts of the creator?
Well, I subscribe.
What is the standard?
I subscribe to death of the author. Author's intention doesn't really factor into anything for me. But
that's what I'm leaning toward with Joss Whedon's choice.
Yeah, like I understand that. What I'm getting at, I guess, with my point was that when I asked the inverse of, say, why wasn't Avengers a musical? It didn't need to be, right? So when I'm asking that about this, the mutant thing helped out earlier. I don't know if like I said, I'm kind of. It's not really an objective issue for me. Like, they chose to make it a musical. I don't necessarily see a necessity by it, but that would just be personal choice of necessity at that point for me. Which is why I say I subscribe to that being under subjective, because we were given it in this art form. And then from that point, we take the death of the author.
Ryder, do you see any musical that needs to be a musical?
That it wouldn't be able to function without being a musical?
Yeah.
Oh, have I seen one? Can't think of any off the top of my head.
Okay.
Wouldn't Belle need to be a musical?
No.
It doesn't need to be.
Well, it's revolved around her performances.
Yeah,
you're going to cut out her performances.
That doesn't make it necessary to be a musical. And we've already discussed how her performances don't qualify it as a musical.
Her performances are part of it being a musical. It's a different kind of musical. One's an in-universe use of music, while the other one is not. Which is what we talked about in The Greatest Showman.
All right. I think you guys have lost me. Are we asking... Sorry. Are we asking me at what point... Okay, because the thing for me here is my point at death of the author is given to me at the point of the artistic thing being completed. Hence why I file the necessity of musical under subjective. So when I'm given a film, I take it as is within the context of that universe if it's a part of a franchise. And then the necessity of what style of art form it is, what kind of movie it is, I take it from there. I don't dive into necessarily, because arguing the necessity of it being a musical for me means that I'm going into not necessarily that to me doesn't go into death of the author. That goes into artist's intent. Why did the author intend to do this? So I'm trying to explain, I guess, why I've divorced that from my objectivity, I suppose.
I mean, I get what you're saying now with what you just stated.
Okay.
I don't know, Spriggs, you had your question. I don't know if you wanted to
Yeah, did you want to
continue
clarify?
that.
I mean, this is a. It seems like Crimson's question and Ryder's given his side. I think the easiest for me to give is a genre is subjective only.
A genre is subjective only? I don't know if I agree with that. But I guess
I wouldn't
there's.
look at Alien and say that's a comedy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's
I will say
subjective.
I will say the lines can be blurred depending on what's going on between genres. Obviously, some of Taika Waititi's earlier works are more of a blend of comedy and horror. Um, so I wouldn't go that far, but there's definitely gray areas that you can operate within. So there would be, I wouldn't say
But
there would be standardized lines, but they're only standards. So you can interweave between them, I suppose.
but in your viewing experience of whatever it may be, you'd see the genre usage as a possibility of an objective flaw than a subjective. Or not necessarily one or the other, but it could be both in an instance.
It could be both in an instance, I suppose. I guess it would be close to how close to reality the fantasy I'm watching is. Like, good. Actually, Marvel's a good example from this. It's supposed to be a quote unquote real world that it takes place in, with it being New York and other cities that we would recognize in our world. But it still has elements of fantasy and sci-fi as a part of that genre. So I don't know if they're necessarily divorced, but that definitely rolls into it when lots and lots of problems start to arise.
Crimson, this answering any aspect of your questions?
um, it's not. I mean, it wasn't really a question. It was stating a point
Yeah, he's
and getting your
more.
guys' thoughts on them.
Yeah, he just wants thoughts on the thoughts of necessity regarding the musical, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I've gotten that now.
Yeah, I've explained what that was, Springs. I was explaining why I don't see that question as an objective one. I see it as a subjective one. Was pretty much my answer to Crimson.
But on musical only?
Well, yeah, that was the context of the question you gave me.
Okay.
So then you expanded it out for me whether everything else would be objective or subjective, right? That was your
Yes.
attempt.
Because musical is a genre choice, and if no musical needs to be a musical of a genre pick, then I feel like any film could fit under that in definition. Like, does a comedy need to be a comedy to work? For the jokes written, that wouldn't land. I feel like that would be a subjective thing. It's like none of the jokes worked. It's not funny.
Yeah, I would say as a standard, it probably is a subjective thing. There are elements though that can become about from that can become an objective point that we could talk about. Like in the example of comedy, I always say, right, it's the reaction to comedy that's subjective, but you can still objectively break down parts of comedy. So, does that answer your question, Springs? I guess for me.
Somewhat.
Okay.
I mean, again, it just falls onto your objective and my objective are different than one another.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying to think of now, it could fit with anything. Like a horror movie, and it's like it wasn't scary, but that's a subjective thing, even though it's defined as horror.
Yeah. That's totally valid. You can objectively describe a genre getting subjective entirely. It's an entirely different subjective experience. A horror movie you can go through an entire horror movie and not be scared a single time, but it would still fall into the genre.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking for myself, a genre situation would be subjective only. It's
Okay.
on to the individual.
I guess I have a follow up question for you. How is Lord of the Rings not objectively a fantasy story?
I can't fight for that because it is. It's listed as fantasy.
Right.
That's what makes it objective.
That's what makes it objective, though. So.
Well, then it would be something that's not listed as in your example you just gave. Why would I say it's
That
not
makes it
objectively a
subjective.
holiday movie?
No. My question to you was because you stated that now every genre to you falls under subjective, which is why I asked the question. Okay, this is obviously an objectively fantasy film. How would that file under subjective for you then?
Of my enjoyment of fulfilling what I see as a fantasy.
Okay, I think you've lost me again.
Okay.
I'm trying to rephrase. I'm trying to rephrase.
I might not
be
100% in understanding your question.
I think it was the way you phrased it. So you phrased it as the intake of a particular genre is subjective. That's how you phrased it, I think, to my understanding. Which is why I asked that follow-up question, because this is objectively a fantasy story. So why is that?
Example of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, in example of Lord of the Rings. Or so why does that my question I suppose was like why would you consider that a subjective intake then if it's objectively a fantasy story?
Well, that's the thing. I wouldn't say objectively a genre.
So you wouldn't label Lord of the Rings as an objective fantasy story then? You would say that was your...
Not in the context of objective for me, no. I don't think it's filing under what I'm understanding.
Then what is it?
You mean what is the genre of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Yeah, your sentence was you objectively don't see it as fantasy. So what would be...
That's not, again, objective? That's not fully what I understood. Genres of fantasy fiction, high fantasy, adventure fiction, chivalric romance, heroic fantasy. So I deemed that subjectively how it fit to me of my liking, to what its portrayal.
But it's still fantasy despite your subjective intake on it.
It's not a sci-fi movie.
I see where I'm mixing. Okay. I see the difference of the objective of what you're stating is what's listed present already for the material of whatever it may be, is the objective of it.
Well, no, it doesn't have to be stated, written somewhere. It's what it is. It is fantasy. I can't look at that and say that's a space opera film. That is objectively wrong. That is me misinterpreting the movie.
And that's a piece of the puzzle I'm not understanding.
The disconnect between like not being.
I'm sorry, audience, for waiting on Dr. Horrible stuff.
Yeah. Okay, I guess explain to me your misunderstanding of the puzzle piece then.
Well, what I'm hearing is you guys saying whatever is a material given in something of listing, so fantasy, whatever genre it is the objective of what is given. And however you partake of that is subjective. Not that whatever is listed by how I see it, however is chosen by the creator, director, writer, author, what have you, is the given statement of that genre for it. Now, whether it's interpreted as listed is subjective. Because people can watch Monsters, Inc. It's a family fun comedy film, animated, and some people can come away that as horror because they're terrified of it. It's not listed as horror.
Right. Okay, so I guess we agree because we just rolled 100% of the way around in a circle with that statement. There is an objective genre for Lord of the Rings. It is fantasy. But you can take away other aspects within the fantasy genre subjectively from it.
Yes.
Well,
obviously sci-fi outside of sci-fi, obviously if you interpret Lord of the Rings as sci-fi, that would just be objectively incorrect because there's no spacefaring opera happening. So
we tackled this slightly in The Changeling, where it's classified as a horror, and Sprinks disagreed with that. And then we talked about, at the time it was blah, 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 blah. We don't need to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, if it's listed as horror, but I found nothing of it scary, then that would be my subjective of the lower because it didn't fit that for me.
Yeah, that's perfectly natural. Your subjective takeaway being different from what it objectively is, because Changeling is objectively horror, but obviously you didn't find it scary.
I guess that's my main confusion I'm getting at this is when I say like the creator's intent or everything, you're both labeling that as objective, or the word use of objective. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes and no. The only clarification I would add on that is, again, my death of the author thing. Someone could have tried to make a fantasy story. This is a really absurd hypothetical, but stay with me. Someone could have tried to make a fantasy story, but ended up being a super realistic, grounded, like Earth, like you took place on the real Earth story. That's an absurd hypothetical. So the only thing I'm adding here to what you said is to kind of understand, I guess, where I'm coming from, and I'm possibly where Crimson coming from. I'm not going to speak for you, sir. Is that, yeah, the author's intent of what it objectively is as an art form. I was given a spacefaring opera with Star Wars. I was given a fantasy with Lord of the Rings. Can be different from what the author's intent was as well. So the author could have intended to give you a horror, but it turned out to be a comedy, objectively. And then you subjectively could take away whether it was funny or not. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
Okay.
This is a musical.
Is it a musical? Is it
all
necessary?
Right, I'm out of notes.
All right, so am I.
Ditto.
I'm assuming you got one last question for us, though, Springs.
Oh, I do. Being that it is a musical we covered. My question is favorite song and least favorite song. We'll end with a high note, so we'll go with least favorite song first. I believe there were 14 songs total in the film. Yes.
Depending on what you count as a song.
Yeah.
Which can go on a different topic, which we're not going on.
No, I believe, there's 14 listed, as what I've seen on both Wikipedia, Spotify.
Do I have a least favorite? I'm trying to think if anyone stuck out to me as a really bad song. I'm not sure they did. A lot of them were pretty mid to me. So now I'm gonna...
While you think on that, I can give my answer.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
I have one good song, one okay song. The rest are all equally as bad to me. So everything that isn't the man one, I already blanked on the name. Shoot,
Man's
Gotta Do. That one and the Bad Horse tune. Everything that isn't those two would be in the same level to me.
Ooh, hot takes. Here we go. I think most of the music is mid to me, to be answered. So I don't know if I hate any of them. My favorite is probably the same as yours, Crimson. Gotta man up and
Man's Gotta
Do song. It definitely stood out. I think that was probably my favorite. My second favorite would probably be his ending song. Because you get
Everything You Ever.
Yeah, it ends very powerfully and kind of hammers home the point of the story.
Hammers, nice one.
But
what about you, Springs? Your least favorite?
My least favorite would be The Horrible Credits. I think it's less memorable. It's a tune that's never remembered. I think the horrible theme is pretty quick and recognizable. The credits I don't think are, so that's probably the bottom of my list. My favorite would be My Eyes song.
Just because I didn't say what my favorite was. It was the Bad Horse song was my favorite. Man's Gotta Do
Standard and reprise.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty similar. So yes, I like the quick pace of the singing. There's rhymes in it. It's catchy.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. I agree with your choice. Good choice.
I will share over on Spotify with the numbers of plays that I have here. The least listened to song is the Horrible theme song with a little over 2,000 plays.
What about a lyrical song? What's the lowest lyrical song?
The Bad Horse Reprise, so the one on the phone, with 5,000.
Okay.
The highest song with over 10 million, 10.5 million is Brand New Day.
That's the I Want to Kill Him song?
Yes.
All right.
Anywho, that was just a question to bring up. Now we can go into ratings of the film. Let us begin with Crimson.
Okay. Well, this one's been all over the place, hasn't it?
Kinda, yeah.
I've added like an hour and a half to this podcast. Just from a couple of questions. Subjectively, I'll start with that. As a musical, it wasn't painful to go through. It wasn't a grueling task, even with its short running time. None of the songs were annoying to me. They were just meh, not memorable really, except the two I pointed out. None of them will be on my podcast playlist, my personal podcast playlist. They didn't leave that much of an impact on me. And in terms of the enjoyment of the characters, I do like Captain Hammer. I even like Nathan Fillion's acting when he was a wimp at the end.
Such a good actor.
Yeah, he's great. So I do get some enjoyment out of this film just because of some of the acting and the characters involved. So I will be giving this a subjective 5. Objectively, boy oh boy, is this one a tough one? I'll go with the easy points I'll be going over, which is the police presence. I do think we have an easy fix for the mayor dedication issue, but unfortunately that fix is not in the film. So that does leave an issue with how he escaped with no explanation. Because what is believed to be there? Captain Hammer and a police presence at a presumably decently sized event. So I would imagine more than one cop being there. So stacked odds against Dr. Horrible. I would like to know how he got away with that. Penny was pretty consistent throughout for the most part. We pointed out that her eating at a homeless shelter it's a nick. It's a little thing.
Eating the food at a homeless shelter.
Yes. Taking a table and eating their food. Because space is valuable at a homeless shelter. The convenience of the Wonder Flonian, or whatever it's called. The convenience of it being at the same spot the alleyway is that Penny's at. That I brought up. Little thing, not well destroying, but it's there. The blog in the first place, I brought up how I think it's a bit too dumb for him, even though he's not the brightest character in the world. He's not flat out stupid either. And I do like how he does change once he realizes it screws him over. It's done it twice in this. But I do think, because he is an established bad guy at the start of this, he's not just starting to be a bad guy, he is established. And he would know at this point, telling your plans out to the world, probably not a good idea. I think that's a nick on Dr. Horrible's intelligence. And now the one everyone's probably wondering, do I file the musical thing as an objective flaw or not? And it's tough. Ryder did a compelling argument with his separation of the death of the author and separation of the author's intent. But I do think putting in an element such as being a musical, or my example of, I guess, Blair Witch that Springs brought up, a creative decision of going handheld in that example. These decisions do matter towards the end product. It's not just the intent, but it does affect the product as a whole. And I think this being a musical doesn't affect the product in a positive way to warrant its existence. So I will be classing it as a negative. I would love to hear comments poking and prodding this, agreeing or disagreeing. That would be nice.
Preferably not from us.
It's interesting.
No,
This is
we got a large
situation
talk
you
on that.
brought up with this film. You didn't bring it up with Greatest Showman.
No, we did, because I didn't see it as a glaring issue, because the music in that was in-universe music plus audience music, so there was more reason for it to be there.
It was less of a debate and more if he was just throwing out his concept, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very different, and we touched on it a little bit. Positives, the story's okay. It's not too crazy. I do like the idea of the bad guy getting jealous of the hero a little bit and becoming more bad. I don't know. I don't want to take too much. I'm already rambling. So objectively, I'll give it a 7. I know. What? That's so high after what you said. But I brought up a lot of nicks, not gouges. The biggest thing I think is the musical thing. So I'll leave it at a 7.
Interesting. All right, we'll go with writer next.
All right, subjective. Really good. I had fun with this. I'm at a 7. I think the biggest takeaway from here was the characters. They were entertaining. They were funny. Funnily enough, on the music point, I found most of the music to be mid, so it wasn't really a negative for me. Like they weren't bad songs necessarily, and they didn't really necessarily affect my perception of the story. So I'm at a subjective 7. I had fun, and I probably would watch this again, and I would recommend it to people for those who haven't seen it. Objectively, all right. Well, plot's pretty simple. Dr. Horrible's trying to get into the League of Evil through various methods of either trying to steal things and trying to eventually kill somebody. He has moral conflictions, and well, that's going to go into character. And then, but that's also part of the driving force of the story and the plot. And also, he's got a crush that is taken by his nemesis, Captain Hammer, and that also feeds into some of the plot motivations going on. So the plot's very much tied to the characters, which is to the benefit of the story, I think. I think the biggest issue with world buildings have already been brought up. There's some conveniences in the plot as well, with Lucky in the alleyway. Crimson brought it up. Police presence, we brought it up. Easy fix. And as I said, I really divorced the musical aspect from it. I guess the author's intent. I was given a musical, so that's kind of how I rate it by. I thought the music was, as I said, pretty mid. I don't think there's anything. I don't have any objective issues with the musical. So I don't have any negatives with it, but I don't have many positives with it either. Like the music didn't blow me away. So again, didn't really factor in all that much to my objective. The characters, Penny's very easily characterized. She's ow. Penny is very quickly characterized. She's a good person, does volunteer work, probably not the best at seeing people for who they are, as Dr. Horrible points out. She likes yogurt, likes to do laundry. The nick in her character is that she went to, eat at a homeless shelter. But there's a positive thing in her to show that she has conflicted feelings over Captain Hammer at some point that she confesses to Doctor Horrible, showing that like she can tell something's off with him. She's just not sure where that is. Um, Overall, good character. She's kind of the victim in the story, I suppose, between Captain Hammer and Doctor Horrible. Captain Hammer, really good antagonist as a hero. He's neglectful, doesn't like being touched by homeless, smart enough to watch Dr. Horrible's blog, does charity when he's kind of strong armed into it, or he's doing it to try, he's either doing it because his girlfriend is interested in it, or he's doing it to appease himself. You can read either way, and I think both would fit. Um, let's see. He's very full of himself, puts on a likes to put on a show of his ego, and that's pretty much. If I were to give him one character trait that you should walk away with, it the fact that this man has a very big ego. Again, very compelling character, done in a very short amount of time, played wonderfully by Nathan Fillion, and that leaves Doctor Horrible. There's not many contradictions with him. We can argue about the intelligence of Doctor Horrible, but really that's a major, I guess, it's a world building thing for me, I suppose, on that front. Whether how in character that is, because how normalized I guess heroes and villains are. I mean, reporters are brave enough to just walk up right to a villain after he killed somebody to ask them what the questions and interview him. Um, which to me, I guess, explains the state of normalcy that sort of thing is in this world. Dr. Horrible also has a string of morals that he slowly starts to lose over the course of these 40 minutes. At the very beginning, he doesn't want to kill people, he doesn't want to fight in front of kids. He's condemned by the mayor, which is funny. It's a letter of commendation. He's also potentially, slowly getting. It's pretty much his slow crawl into villainy is what the 40 minutes of this 40-minute short film is. And he obviously learns from his past mistakes when he learns that the LAPD and Captain Hammer watch his blog. And he does turn evil by the end. He accumulates an amount of reasons to want to be in the League of Evil, accomplishes his goal, and loses everything in the process. It's a classic, almost tragic tale in that way. Even though he was already evil to begin with. But he lost the morals, presumably, or at least a fair amount of them along the way, because he was eventually willing to kill someone, which is a uniquely powerful tale. I think objectively, I am at a 7.5, potentially an 8, but 7.5 for now.
Alrighty. Well, I guess with me last up at the bat here, I touched on earlier that this film reminded me of something else that probably got inspired by this. I think this film already is inspired by Beauty and the Beast a little, with a Beast character, a Beauty, and a Gaston. But I think something of future. I think it's future. It came out afterwards. I didn't even double check. But this film slightly reminds me of Megamind, of the villain who's trying to be villain and then a little heroic because of a love interest, but then when the purpose is made that they defeated their nemesis, it's like, what's the purpose now? So at least the beginning of Megamind aspect, so I felt it reminded me of that. However, anyway, subjectively the film, I give it an 8.5. I really enjoyed it. It's really fun.
Did you
I
say
think
subjectively?
all the songs,
Sorry, you kind of
subjectively.
Okay.
Subjectively 8.5. I think all the songs stand out. They're all fun. Never mind, let me rephrase it. I think all the songs stand out on their own, because I already talked about the end credit scene. I think is the least memorable, but they're fun. It's a fun movie. It's short, which I think really helps, like, not feel like a drag or a long thing. I mean, even Crimson pointed out, like, the beginning of that almost 4 minutes, and then possibly 5.5, depending if the first song's incorporated. And it felt like a long situation. I think it's fine. It works good. Um, but I enjoy the movie. I watch it again. I recommend it to people. Uh, Objectively, let's go with that. I think the writing's fairly well done with the characters and their dialogue fit well. It's very quick. There's comedic bits, of course, written in, but that's for the characters themselves. Whether Doctor Horrible, Captain Hammer, even Penny when she's testing Doctor Horrible, put it in there. Um, I think the cinematography is like a 6 out of 10 on cinematography. It's fine. There's a few little things I really like. I like the outside at the beginning of Brand New Day. It's kind of like a Dutch angle showing the slight twist of Dr. Horrible to then follow up with him using the freeze gun and then that harder Dutch angle of him really like getting to that evilness like that. Um, the use of editing in the film is fine. Not a lot of transitional pieces like editing transitional pieces used. Some of the editing is in my eyes. There's the part of the overlapping of Penny and Dr. Horrible singing together against the wall, and then they kind of reuse that later on with um, shoot, what's that song? They say I believe is the song usage of that where it edits in a fade cross of Dr. Horrible to the halfway mark to do that kind of same thing they did earlier. But it's definitely edited more to that point. So editing overall, I think is fine. The two montages picks we talked on, they do stand out very well. I mean, even the editing on the one Crimson touched on with the old film look to it does stand out of apart from everything. Um, so that aspect of it. Let's see. Lighting overall, I think was fine. It definitely seemed like they didn't have any artificial lighting to really use on sets at points. I guess the spotlight was the only one that was touched on. Everything else seemed natural, and because of that, it brought up some exposure situations. However, none of us are aware if that is a lighting situation, an editing situation, something to do with the camera itself stuck on a setting. Who knows? I classify all that into lighting though, because I think if the lighting was fine, none of that would have occurred. For the examples of the overexposure. Um, let's see. Costuming. Costuming very simple, very plain and working. However, it kind of goes into the American movie topic with the fact that Felicia Day did not have a costume department at all. It was her own clothing. Now, I didn't know. That's another aspect of not knowing. Did she have to get it greenlit by Joss Whedon on day of set? Did she already have it all planned out for the 6 days of shooting? Did they already know what she would wear out of her wardrobe? Don't know. Um, but because it was all out of her and her own, it kind of makes her her own costume department. So that just makes it a very middle road of that, as I've brought up before, because it can't be credited that there isn't an instance of a costume department on that, at least at that end, for Penny's character, but it also shouldn't be praised for it by just not being present as well. So 5.5 on that matter. Um, but overall, with the goods and the bads, it's not perfectly done, and I think the budget and the shoot schedule and everything, and kind of just like a Joss Whedon um, passion project situation of it, does show its time. So I give it a 7 objectively. I'm unsure of things we've discussed. First off, the thing I've already touched on the musical aspect. I don't see objectively at all. The fact that it is a musical, fine. Um, but the things of like one line here could strengthen a bit of examples of to why they didn't shoot an additional thing. Um, Even if that is behind the scenes, like, oh, we didn't have the accessibility to do that. We didn't have a mayor that was able to be hired or casted situation. If the one at the town hall meeting wasn't the mayor to begin with, anyhow. Um, but situations like that, a little line here or there, I think could boost it a bit as to reasonings why we couldn't see that. So yeah, 7, which I find is a little interesting because it matches up with Crimson's, but I think they fall for different reasons.
Well, all right then.
Yeah.
Shall I read us out, gentlemen, or do we have any final thoughts?
I'm good, I think. I feel like this
Um,
is definitely an episode of the pod that could get a good amount of feedback because it kind of broke into episode 0, a slight tad.
A little.
It did a tad.
Yeah,
Some
and apologies
recap
for
talk
those.
on this one.
Yeah, apologies for those who didn't expect that or necessarily want that.
Welcome to the podcast. In that
Not with
case,
apologies. Yeah, it's our content. This part will be cut out. Ethan, I don't know if it was on my end. Was Chase being robotic on his last points, or was that just on my end?
I didn't hear any roboting. No.
Okay, that was just on my end. Okay, just wanted to make sure that we didn't end and have that in there. Okay. I had to leave and restart Discord during that, so okay.
Okay, no worries.
Ready for the outro.
Well, I guess with that, guys, I'll read us out. So thank you for listening, audience, whether it be Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podcast, and Samsung. If you're on our visual side of things, be it YouTube, Rumble, thank you for listening. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them, or give us feedback for our long-winded artistic conversations. As always, I have been a geeky writer.
I'm Carson Maroon.
And I'm Springs.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.